Hi, hello, and welcome to another episode of course,
China.
My name is Fernando.
And I'm Ziv.
And his name is Tim Page. I got it right this time. Tim, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks,
Good. All right, cool. Ziv, why don't you give us a short introduction of Tim?
I got a body twist.
Yeah, Tim Page. So Tim Page is from Australia. He graduated university from IT and Japanese. Then he joined Nintendo. He was lucky enough to be on their first team in Australia, one of the first guys. And from there he continued to EA Sports, doing video games, which we're going to talk a lot about. And after some more time traveling the world, scouting for gamers and video games, he moved out to Netherlands or to Japan and Netherlands. You lived in Japan and in Netherlands, right?
I lived for a couple of years.
Then going back to Australia. This is a fast forward kind of introduction, right?
That's okay.
Joining THQ.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then later on in 2008, he moved to China, to Shanghai to be exact, with two very little kids.
Yeah. My daughter was just over 3 months old. My son was just over a year, basically. So I was with THQ, and we were expanding ourselves into the Asian market. We opened the office in Japan and also opened in Korea, and then we decided to open an office in Shanghai. And I thought, instead of traveling all the way from Melbourne, Australia, going up and doing these long leg tours and having the whole thing, I thought, now's a good chance and opportunity to move up there and get closer to where the action was.
And today we are here sitting in this coffee shop called Good Days.
But why are we here? Okay, I think that's question number one.
Right.
Tim, why?
Well, G'days is almost like G'day in
G'days.
Australia.
G'day.
Very close when I saw
Right.
it. I didn't want to spell check and fix it because it's a good coffee, basically. But
Right.
Look, it's just by accident. Like my office is upstairs, up here, with, and I was always looking for good coffee. Like, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. We love coffee. We got coffee on every street corner there is, and Starbucks is not great, and other coffee shops that are here. Sorry to Starbucks like that, but it's in search of good coffee, and I just luckily came to this place. Adam, who owns a joint here, and it just made an excellent cup of coffee.
You told me it's the best coffee shop in Dongguan.
Best I can find in Dongguan. Yeah. Absolutely the best. He imports his beans. He's very careful about the whole thing, and I haven't found a better coffee shop yet.
And the boss came from Starbucks, you said?
He did, yeah. He's a young guy, got trained at Starbucks, learned the business and how to make coffee and really how to run a business. And then, like a lot of young Chinese, they've got entrepreneurial, decided to open his own coffee shop, and it's been a great success.
And he's doing good. He's doing
well,
well,
he's doing
right?
good. Yeah, he's doing pretty good now. He gets a good crowd in here.
All right, we ordered a couple of coffees. It could be a couple of minutes before they bring them here. I tried the coffee yesterday. Pretty good. Pretty good. I had Colombian coffee, which is very much the way
What a
it should be.
surprise.
Yeah, I did tell him to spell it right because everywhere around China, people spell it with an U.
Yeah.
I say, hey, please, with an O.
This
You're
is-
so
this-
perfectionist
It's
about
not,
everything.
It's not the university.
This is the
Come on.
progress. This
Yeah.
is China's progress. They still spell it wrong, but at least the coffee is damn good.
Yeah.
Right?
But it will take me a few years going one coffee shop at a time to tell them to spell it right until we get it fine. All right.
Good coffee.
So, Tim,
Yeah.
let's get back to the
Coming to-
beginnings. Coming to China.
Yes.
Coming to China. Wow.
Why did you come to China?
Right.
Well, like I said, I was at THQ, and we basically opened the office, and it was a good opportunity then to get close to where the market was. We were doing a lot more at the time, online games and mobile games. Looking back, this is late 2000s. Online games was just exploding in Asia. It was exploding in Korea, starting to explode in China. So it's a good chance for us to really, being a U.S. kind of global company that was traditionally doing video games and handheld games, we needed to get into the online gaming space, and there's no better spot to be ground zero, close enough to be able to do that. So we did. So I opened it up here. And we built
That was
development
THQ.
teams. THQ. Yeah.
Okay.
We built development teams here. We built publishing sales teams here. What we tried to be able to do in the beginning was grab some of our popular, well-known licensed products, like Company of Heroes and products like that, and bring them to the Asian market, culturalize, build the
Localize
game.
it.
Yeah, it wasn't just actually taking the game and localizing it. We actually built a lot of components from the ground up to really suit the local marketplace here. So we did that for a WWE game. We did it for a Company Heroes, a strategic type game as well. It was great because we had to collaborate with some Chinese developers at the same time to really learn how to culturalize games and build things up that would be much more suited to the local markets. And we did. It was great fun.
What
It was really good fun.
what were the
Particularly in the early
challenges?
days.
What were the challenges that you expected and maybe
Language.
that you didn't expect? Language, of course, right?
I remember sitting and we used to bring some of the the core studio we had was in Canada. So we'd bring a group of these guys over, like, 8 guys from Canada who are part of the core team. I mean, the studio itself is like, 100 people sort of thing big. We'd bring like 8 of the core people over here. We'd sit with the Chinese development team on the other side, the core group, core programmers, art designers, and there's game designers and stuff like that. And just, I can remember sitting in this room out in Shanghai where we were at the time, and just staring at each other, and nobody knew how to speak to each other. Like you got Chinese on one side and Western on the other side, and we ended up getting some pretty good translators to help us. But back in the day, people didn't have that bilingual skill. Of course, now it's much more prominent between game developers here in China and even from overseas. But it was a rough start, to say the least.
How did you overcome that issue?
Perseverance, like extreme. The thing, I give credit to the guys that came across, were joining me on the project, because they learned patience. You just got to have patience at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You got to learn that they're going to think a little bit differently here. You have to understand the cultural nuances that happen here, and even aside from the languages, and just give them space to express themselves.
Yeah.
Don't just try to dominate over that, because they're trying to do exactly what you're trying to do, is make a successful game for here.
What are some of those localization features that you had to do? Could you give us an example of what kind of things you had to change to localize the stuff?
Well, for the Company of Heroes was a great one. It's a World War II game, right?
Uh-huh.
So it's all set, and it's tank plays, and we have Allied versus Axis, right? It's supposed to be kind of the Western versus the German side of it. Of course, on being a fairly realistic style game, we had things like swastikas and things like that, which was on the actual tanks and certain uniforms. And of course, China here is opposed to having those kind of symbolisms and things on that. So we had to go through all the artwork, scrub all that out there, both voice, written, artwork, anything that may be, just
Deemed as inappropriate.
deemed as not appropriate for here. So we had
I
to-
see.
So
we had to
already
go
back
through that.
then, there was a lot of enforcement by the authorities for these kind of things?
Yeah, definitely. Like, the government's always been trying to force, and they've gotten stronger over the last kind of 12 years with their policies and rules. But back then it was a little bit challenging, because you had two kind of government bodies that were separated, and they have their own opinions about how games should be. So you kind of had to convince one, then you had to convince the other one.
Is
And
it
you
like
had
the
to try-
culture department and the information
Kind of,
department?
yeah,
Something
yeah.
like
one
that,
looks after
right?
kind of entertainment and culture,
Right.
and the other one that was kind of growing up looking after games and stuff like that. So it just, it was a fun kind of going backward and forward. And then there's no rule book at the time, 12 years ago, like, just give me a book I can go through and tell me what to take out. It just didn't exist. So
Yeah.
you just had to be guided by, you submit the game to the government, go, is this okay?
What do you guys
Is
reckon
that-
about
is
this
that
one?
okay?
So you were running the office, you were the guy, right?
Yeah, I was the
and
GM
you
at the
had
time, yeah.
mostly, so you're the only foreigner in the office full time?
No, we had a couple other guys
You
which
had
had come across
the-
from the US market as
Ah,
well.
okay.
Plus a lot of the Chinese stuff we organised as well.
Right.
But I was looking after the kind of Asian needs. So I had we had an office in Tokyo as well, also an office in Seoul.
So you traveled
I was-
around still.
every month. It's
Yeah.
almost like 1 week, going backwards and forwards.
And why did you choose Shanghai?
It's a funny thing. I never in my life ever thought I'd end up in China. It's I studied back in the days. I studied Japanese language
Right.
and computers and things like that. And I never thought I always thought I'd live in Japan, and I did for a couple of years. And then it's just by opportunity, by default. We kind of grew things up at a pretty fast pace. And we knew China was changing quickly,
Yeah.
particularly in the gaming space. They were still little. 12 years ago, they weren't the big gaming behemoth that they are today, but we knew this country was going to grow pretty quickly. We got to be there at ground zero to watch this and try to learn from this whole thing. Just the company, then, we had a discussion. Whoop.
So they saw the market.
Little dip. Yeah, look, I put a proposal together myself, and I said, look, I need to be closer to the action. And we ran it up through the high management. I said, look, this is a great idea. It's worth the investment.
So
All right.
Tim,
That's off time.
you moved to Shanghai in 2008. You had a wife, 2 very little kids.
Still have, yeah.
Yeah. How, now they're not so little now, right? So how was the process? How can you describe, like, did your wife accept it and all of that?
Yeah, that's a big question. I have to
Yes.
really think back. Look, we had no expectations. Like I said, I'd never been to China before. I didn't really.
Here's
to be
our
honest,
coffee.
Ooh,
I didn't
coffee.
Coffee.
Yeah.
That was it.
Good day.
G'day, coffee.
This one is
Yes, cappuccino.
cappuccino is
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
Cool.
Cappuccino.
Okay.
Thank
Best
is mine.
coffee in Dongguan.
Thank you. Good day.
You know.
Yeah.
Good day. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
帅哥.
Swagger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so God, just thinking back, it was all so fast at the time. Like I kind of pitched the whole thing together, and the whole idea was like, okay, you got to go. Like, oh shit, okay, so we decided to hook up with an HR company to help meet us. We flew up with the family. My son was about a year old. My daughter was not born at a particular time. We first came up to have a look. So my wife was heavily pregnant, like 7-8 months pregnant, out to here, and we thought, shit, we got to get up and have a look and just check some apartments out. And we were trying to set the office up at the same time, and it was, I can still remember, it was like the middle of summer, it was like July like this, just hot. It's super hot. So in Shanghai, it was wet, it was raining, it was thunderstorms. I had no idea where we were going. We didn't have smartphones or anything
at the time,
2008. There was
First iPhone, huh?
We had nothing fancy like that at all. And, we looked at a couple of apartments, eventually found the place we like, which is Lujia's Way, which is kind of the cool place with the nice cool towers. It looks really nice.
So that's where the expats were?
Not really, to be honest.
Is it Pudong?
Pudong.
It's Pudong.
Just on the other side. So you see all those. Shanghai's interesting. You got the main river, the Huangpu River that goes through. You got the old side, kind of like
the
French
concession,
French concession in the middle of Shanghai, but you got the old French and English kind of colonial along the riverside. And the other side is like out of the Jetsons. It's just awesomely, cool tall buildings. So we said that looks cool. That looks, it was. In the other side of Shanghai, it's really cramped. You live very close together, whereas the other side was new. It was only about 15 years old, that development area. So all the buildings were new. The streets a little bit wider. We thought that's nice. I can take the ferry if I want to go to work. I can take a car underneath or a subway system.
Nice.
But
how was the
But it was kind of terrifying because my wife was having troubles with the baby at the time, right? A little bit of bleeding. So we're like, oh shit, we got to go to a hospital. Quickly rushed to a hospital. We went to a Western style hospital, and they were like, oh, that's it. You've got to go straight to Hong Kong, get in a helicopter, $100,000. You got to fly out there to go the whole thing. We're like, what the hell? It just completely panicked, right? And then we decided to then go to another hospital, a local Chinese hospital. Actually, the best thing we did, but it was terrifying because none of us spoke Chinese at the time, because we're just fresh off the boat, so to speak. Went to the hospital there, and we just tried to work our way through it. We had no helpers or assistants, but we managed to get there, got my wife into a ward there. And, there's a doctor there, was great, spoke a little bit of English, got us settled, looked after her for a couple of days. But I remember going home that night, this hospital, like a Chinese hospital, it's like a World War II bunker. These things are just massive and things like that. And I remember getting back to the hotel, and I've got my son, and it's raining, and he's crying. I'm like, I have no way to contact her.
Yeah.
Just isolated back
So this
then, right?
it was really the first days?
This is the first, like we hadn't moved in yet. We were just looking at properties, and then
we didn't know anyone yet.
Didn't know anybody yet.
But even 2008, even in Shanghai, you say English was not
so prominent. Today everyone speaks great English here, but back then it was just nuts. And look, we got through, and eventually the doctor said, "Look, don't panic. Rest for a couple of days." We got on a plane, came back to Australia. When about a week or two, my daughter was born.
How do you handle that situation?
Could you imagine the panic of like,
how do you handle the who do I believe? Because you got the Western hospital telling you, go to Hong Kong, $100,000, and the Chinese guy it's going to be okay.
It's just, the Chinese doctor.
The Western hospital is foreigners, you mean?
Yeah, it was foreign doctors and local doctors and things like that. But we just didn't know it. But she felt calmer by the other doctor that she went to at the other hospital, because that guy's probably delivered 100,000 babies, right, that day, right?
You believe the guy that doesn't tell you to spend 100,000 on a helicopter?
Probably at the time,
I'll go with that guy.
Didn't seem necessary at the time.
Yes.
But look, my wife felt more relieved. The guy spoke some English. She just felt more comfortable. She felt she was in good hands.
Yeah.
Right. Even though English was a little bit broken back then, she just felt much better and relieved. Right. And that was the main thing.
Okay.
And so we're able to get in that plane and get
back. But that's one of those interesting situations that you get.
It's a horrific experience when we first kind of got.
You get into when you decide to move to China. Like somebody tells you something, somebody tells you something else. Like when I had
we have this all the time.
Story. I had appendicitis, right?
Yeah.
What I thought was appendicitis, and the guy said oh, the surgery is this much, and I'm like, okay. And then I talked to Natalia Fernandez, the Colombian doctor, and I said what do you reckon? Well, if you don't have a fever and you don't have this and this, then perhaps it's not. So I talked to them so why don't I have a fever? Why these numbers are like this? I'm like, if you want, we can give you antibiotics. And I'm like, so if it's appendicitis, I could die, but you're gonna just let me go with pills. It's so hard to know.
Yeah, when I got my, I was just telling you, my sudden deafness, right?
Yeah.
Here. And I went to the doctor.
What?
I went to the hospital. They check, and the guy tells me, you got sudden deafness. And I'm like, get out of here. What do you know? Because I never heard about this thing.
So he just walked out, right?
I walked out. He said you should start treatment right away.
What?
Later I discovered he was right.
I think I can't hear him.
But you see, but he was right? And I should have started treatment. And then I went to Hong Kong to check. They told me the same. And then I went to another hospital here. By the time I started treatment for this condition, it was a bit late, right? So, different situation. We all have these kind of things where
There's lots of stories like
we
that.
have
for
to
people like that.
listen to people and use our judgment, look at the internet.
Do you think
Kind of
it's the same in the
Australia, though,
West?
same thing. Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of the same in Australia. If you go to a bad doctor, right, you just don't feel comfortable.
Right,
You go
right.
how many people tell you go get a second opinion, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. But
Yes.
We'll get a
at least here,
a
there's
contradictory
at
voice.
least here,
with the
there's
magazine.
a lot of hospitals here, right? You can get a lot of second
With the
opinions.
magazine here, a lot of people ask me over the years, which hospital should they go to?
Yeah.
Which is the
That's
best?
a good question.
And I always say, look, I've heard good and bad things about each hospital, about every hospital.
much every hospital.
So, I mean, it really depends, like you said, about,
I had
the
a
doctor.
I had a massive accident years ago, which is massive. I got knocked out by a dumpling. It's a good story. You like this one,
Knocked
right?
down by dumpling.
Yeah, I do contact sports. I play rugby. I do all kinds of shit. And I've never been knocked out in my life except by a dumpling, right? So
You mean that's a nickname for a guy?
big Chinese guy came at me. Just boom, that was it done. But so I'll tell you the story, right? So I had my own. So when I left THQ, right, I opened my own. I had this whole indie spirit, right, and like everybody back then, we're not going to pull this off, are we? So I opened my own game studio, and that was probably one of the most scariest and the most exciting times of my life, opening my own studio. It was called T-Rex Games, right? And I just thought everyone around the world was getting into the indie spirits and doing mobile games. I thought, wow, I'm gonna have a crack at this, right? I'd left the corporate world, done that for 20 odd plus years, and really had a go of it. And we had about 25 guys in the studio. It was cool, really funky, kind of cool thing. We were building a couple of games, built a Monkey King game, and also a Japanese license game as well. But long story short, I was trying to, talking to a new investor at the time, this Chinese guy, right? And he's well off. He owns a big gaming company, and he was looking to invest into us. And he said, okay, let's get a quick bite to eat, right? And so we went to this little dumpling place near his office. And I knew something was wrong when I grabbed the chopsticks out of the bucket and everything was floating, right? He's like, yeah, this doesn't feel right. Like the chopsticks were literally floating in water kind of thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, I better do this, right? It's money, it's investment, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, well, I'll have the fried dumplings because at least it's like fried and killed and all that kind of stuff. I might be safe on this whole thing, right?
Fried as much as you can.
Just can you fry it more? Just get black on every side.
Yeah.
So I ate it that way, and everything went good. We shook hands, but at the same time, I was working really game development, particularly in an indie studio. You're working 18 hours a day. You're just like 6-7 days a week. Sometimes you sleep in the office. So it was just crazy. A lot of stress on the body the whole time. And I guess I'd run myself down at the time. And I'm sure game developers around the world have all been through this, right? Particularly indie guys have had these kind of horror moments. I got back 4 hours later, like dumplings do. Boom, hits the stomach, feeling sick, nauseous, vomiting, about at both ends basically. But I kind of woke up in the morning and went, I've got to go to work. I've got the team depending on me. I've kind of, the boss scenarios, first in, last out kind of thing. And I remember taking the subway line. It's line 2 in Shanghai. It's the main line that crosses one side of Shanghai to the other side. It's like 1 million people check this thing, right? And for me, it was about a 40-minute journey on the subway, going from one to the other side. And I got to stop, I think it was like 12 stops, and I got to stop 10. The doors open up, and I'm just feeling just flushed and just, starting to sweat everywhere. And then it starts getting closer to line, to stop 11. I'm starting to feel like, oh my God, I don't feel good.
I'm not going to make it.
Just like, it's not good. I'm looking at the edge of the subway inside. They've got the metal pole that goes around, the left and right side. And I kind of edge towards that and grab onto it a little bit. I think I got one more stop to go. I can do this, right? And then before it left, stop 11 to kind of stop 12, I felt the blood rush from my feet go all the way up my body to my head. And that was it. just gone. Wow. So I think I woke up about 5 or 8 seconds later on the floor. I had a heavy backpack with my laptop and all that kind of stuff in the back. And I'm laying on the floor. I'm just going, what the hell is going on, right? And there's all these people, there's Chinese people around me, trying to pick me up and grab me up, and they help me up. And I'm, 100 kilograms plus backpack. It's not easy, right? They're trying to hook me up. And they eventually, the doors opened up, and they got me off onto the, onto the platform kind of thing. And I'm wandering on all fours almost, crawling out, going, what the fuck, kind of thing like this. And I grabbed my phone at the time, and I just flipped it over, turned the camera on, and go, I don't feel so good, right? So I looked at myself, and my nose was broken, my teeth were all chipped, I had cut marks in my mouth, just bleeding everywhere down the front. So I must have hit the wall, dragged down, hit the bar, the metal bar in the subway, and then just gone like a sack of potatoes onto the floor, right?
Wow.
But then I got there, and I'm going, oh shit, this is not good. It's getting like that, blood pouring everywhere. One of the platform guys that works the train, he saw me, he comes running over, went like that, ran off, thinking, oh well. He runs off, he gets a police guy, one of the Shanghai police guys. The police guy comes back and goes, couldn't speak much English, my China was a bit broken at the time, and he goes, okay, don't worry, and he went and got a wheelchair for me. Basically grabbed me, picked me up, put me on a wheelchair, took me up, up the elevator to the top street, called an ambulance for me, and sent me to the hospital.
Wow.
I was like, wow, this is great.
That was
this is really.
That was the beginning of your time in Shanghai?
No, that was probably about halfway. It was only a few years back, and then I went to one.
Have you been eating dumplings since?
This is not really. It's kind of a repeating story because I ended up going to a Western hospital first. They were like, "Yeah, we can't quite treat you. We're not quite sure." It was a different scenario. I went like, "Seriously?" So they put me. They said, they're polite. They said you should go see a specialist. Right. So they put me in another ambulance, which was about a 40-minute journey to a public hospital. It was in Songjian, which is the outside of Shanghai. But it was really good. Apparently, it's like one of the best hospitals I've ever been. Everything's brand new. It's massive. They've got doctors everywhere. They had a VIP ward kind of thing that you could go in there. And they just had every machine you could ever figure, right? And it was also where they teach the doctors of Shanghai are taught there. So it's also a school.
Okay.
Right, so just beautiful facilities. And of course, they did all the scans and everything was okay.
It was expensive dumpling.
Yes.
Did you get that deal?
I had insurance. So
it was a guy that
pro tip if you hear, guys,
insurance.
Health insurance.
Oh, that's another whole topic.
Because you'll never know if you get hit by a dumpling, right? It's just like
that's China.
The bill was
get hit by dumpling.
The bill was way up there.
So Shanghai, I want to know a little bit more about Shanghai. Shanghai is awesome, you're saying.
It's, I've lived in Tokyo, I've lived in Europe, obviously Australia and things like that. Shanghai today is probably one of the most modern cities I've ever been to. It is not what people think. It's just, it's this clash of the old, the old China with the old French in there as well and the old English. And then you've got this kind of new, super, the subway system is just modern. The buildings, it's got the second tallest building in the world now.
The beer open air?
Yeah, no, the one next to it.
The
I call it the rolled up newspaper. Kind of looks like
that. That's a newer one.
You got three buildings. You got the rolled up newspaper. It's called Shanghai Tower. You've got the bottle opener.
Right next to each other, right?
Which is right next to each other. Looks like a giant bottle opener. And then you got the other one, which is like King Kong building, right? It's just looks like a King Kong, and they're just a magnificent.
How about the tower?
Buildings, right?
How about the tower? What's the name for that?
Shanghai Tower. It's cool.
Shanghai Tower.
Shanghai Tower.
Do they have any do they have
nothing fancy?
What do you call it? A skywalk? Do they have anything there?
I think
like Macau.
Yeah, they do. They've got like an observation deck. You can go to the top there and just you're above the clouds.
You mean on the tower?
You're way up.
I walked in the beer opener. I walked there.
The bottle opener one.
Yeah, the bottle opener.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, they got the glass floor you go across. And
right. Have you done that? The tower?
Yeah, the tower.
Do they have like bungee jumping or stuff like that? Because in Macau they have a zip line.
And it was the
bungee jumping and a zip line.
The highest bungee jumping in the world. It was Macau.
Yeah.
Before.
What about the cost of living in Shanghai compared to other places?
Australia. You came from Australia, right?
Coming from
You've been
Australia,
in Japan too.
Look, it's interesting. Like branded goods are expensive. If you get like Gucci's and Louis Vuittons and stuff like that, because you got all the duties and imports and things like that, they're more expensive for branded goods. These days it's come much down, right? Because they're now doing a lot more local manufacturing. But 12 years back it was, or even 8 years back, it was expensive. But local living was great. You can get like the food's really cheap, the transport's really cheap. You go out and do stuff, it's all pretty cheap. And to be honest, if you want to find cheaper clothes and stuff like that, there's everything. You can find everything.
This is China, really, right?
Yeah, you can find everything. It's like 100 levels of everything.
It's getting expensive, but you can still walk to a side street and eat some local food.
I can eat for 50 cents for breakfast. It's crazy.
The one level that I've never understood is those Chinese brand that are very expensive and they came out of nowhere. Like they said, like since 2017.
Right.
Like. All right, but 1,000 for a T-shirt.
1875.
How about?
I've seen those restaurants.
How about the rents? How about the actual necessities of living?
Shanghai is now much more expensive. It's like also Australia's expensive for living if you rent a place. So it's right up there. It's all relative. If you live out in the outer suburbs in a smaller apartment, it's going to get cheaper. If you want to be downtown, But in Shanghai, it's wherever you're close to a school or close to a main subway line, price goes up basically.
Right.
It doesn't really matter so much about view.
You guys
or
talk
anything
about
else.
food. Do you guys want to order something?
Yeah.
From next
Maybe
door?
we get some
Eggs?
foods. No,
Yeah.
don't stop. Yeah, just
Couple
we get
eggs?
some. Yeah, we get
Love-
some eggs
love-
and
love the-
baozi.
No. I'm gonna
What?
get the fried dough thingy, which I like.
Oh, the
There's
fried dough
sesame
thing.
bowls.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like Hong Kong style kind of.
That's
I
my
think.
favorite. Yeah.
Well, that's true. The food down here is way different because Shanghai it's Shanghainese food.
Yeah.
And you also get a mix of just foods and restaurants from all over the world, right? I can find anything in Shanghai for food.
Right.
Coming down to Dongguan now the last couple of years, that you get used to Cantonese food.
So and it's more local.
Right?
You mean
So,
there is less Western food variety?
a little bit less here where we are living compared to Shanghai, but you do get the varieties of all the Cantonese food that's here.
Right. So
The
I
dim
mean,
sims
you
and the
moved
buns
you
and
moved
stuff.
down south
Yeah,
a
about
couple
2
of years ago.
Yeah, about 2 years back. Yeah.
Why? Why was that?
I'd like to say sea change, but we're not near the sea at all.
Right.
Oh, it's
Oh, okay. We got
All
some
right.
some
So
local kind of.
okay, this is for you guys. I don't do this.
I'll take one of the eggs.
You don't do that.
no.
It's eggs, brown eggs. They're brown because they were cooked in tea, right?
Yeah, the tea eggs. These are good. I like these eggs.
Yeah.
All right.
Excuse me,
Go through
everybody.
the experience.
Can I have one of these tea eggs there?
Move the coffee away so you can actually
wanna
see the whole.
Oh, you want to see the tea eggs here? They drip everywhere.
It's much better than it looks.
Yeah. You know what? I was doing this really good every day, but I can't do it.
So you actually have them in every morning, 2 eggs here, but just under your office.
Usually I go in the gym for an hour every morning.
So this is your routine. You come here
yeah,
for
this is-
coffee and
you guys have got me in my routine, basically. Yeah.
tea eggs.
Drop the kids off to the bus to school. Go hit the gym. All that stuff.
We try him off today. He gets his 3rd egg this morning.
30 for the extra protein
Right.
today. Come down, get the coffee, get myself sorted in the mornings. It's a bit like, if I was in Melbourne, I'd probably do the same thing. Go to a coffee shop, check your emails, check your schedule for the day, get
Yeah.
everything ready to rock and roll for the day.
What about gyms?
Gyms.
What do you think about gyms here in China?
It's a new trend that's happened here. I mean, China hasn't been very big on a lot of that type of stuff previously, although they do a lot of exercise here and a lot of different sports. Gyms is something that's much newer, so you get some commercial gyms, you get some good gyms here, you get some just terrible gyms there, you get some good trainers, you get some bad trainers. It's still to me in its infancy area. It's got a lot to grow, but they're everywhere. This is.
Have you been with the same gym for a long time, or have you hopped around, or what?
Oh, I've had to hop around a lot. God, I've made a really sick.
How do you choose a gym in China? And is it different than back home?
Yeah, well, for me, definitely looking for the right kind of weights and exercise machines and stuff like that. But because I'm a bit of an early bird, I get up early. I'm up at like 5:30, 5:45 kind of thing. So I look for one that's actually open. Unfortunately, that's kind of rare here. A lot of the gyms they haven't got onto that. I did have a gym last year, which was a 24-hour gym. Was great. Had great exercise stuff. I could go in there early, but that gym's now closed down, unfortunately.
They went down.
It can be a tough business if you're in the wrong spot.
I remember during the preparation, you told us that you actually changed the business hours of this coffee shop.
I did, yeah.
What's the deal with that? Tell us about that too.
Yeah, I just, I was just talking to Adam, and just, he had his original hours when he opened this a couple of years ago. I think it was like 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And I was sort of explaining, I think you could probably do better if you open a little bit earlier, because you'll get the morning crowd. I mean, right now it's feeling a bit quiet. What time is it now? It's about 10:30. But a couple of hours ago, this place was packed out the front here. A lot of people do coffee or deliveries and things like that. I said, why don't you try to open a little bit earlier and finish a bit earlier? Because at 10 o'clock at night, there's probably not many people drinking
coffee. Yeah.
Now, fruit tea here in China, I can understand.
Yeah.
They're open till late at night kind of thing. But coffee's a bit different. So he did. He changed his hours, and
Now he's working.
it's worked.
But
Yes.
You really wanted him to be open early.
Yeah, to be honest, I just wanted him, to
It
be
was
up for me.
selfish
It was
advice.
a very selfish advice, actually, to be
Right,
honest. And
right.
it worked, and it's paid off for both of us. So we're
all right,
happy now.
tell us about the egg.
So I mean,
You have this before?
Of course, many times. Yeah,
Really?
you can buy it in every Meiji too.
I'm not crazy about
Have you
boiled eggs.
tried?
I
Ah,
only
or
eat
just
like
boiled eggs.
fried
Oh.
eggs or omelets, but boiled
I
eggs.
love eggs.
Soaked in a tea. I get no idea what flavor it is, but no matter where you go in China, it all tastes the same tea flavor.
Right, right.
Ah,
So
it's like
it doesn't
McDonald's.
matter where you go. Yeah, like
This is
McDonald's,
McDonald's
like that.
breakfast, yeah.
But you can buy it.
It's great. How much it costs? How much is it?
2 eggs, I think it's about like 3 kwai.
3 kwai.
3 yuan,
like
so that's 50 cents
something
US.
like-
Less than 50 cents for
Less than
2
50
eggs,
cents for
2
two
boiled
eggs.
eggs.
That's your protein for the day.
It's a good breakfast. I prefer this than the other, stuff they got on those stores. Like like the hot dogs.
This got everything I like.
The fish
I like
balls,
the dough.
the fish balls,
the floating fish balls and the curry sauce.
Yes.
This one's got the dough. This one's got the oily thing. It's everything I like.
There's choice.
Dough and oil. That's what you like. Okay.
I should be a police officer.
So I mean,
they're just over there, to be honest.
we're talking about your
police
kind of
stations
daily schedule, right? So you come here in the morning. You wake up. You said you wake up early. You go to the gym. You come here. You go up to the office, and then what? How a day, an expat like yours looks like? Everybody's different, but
it's different. My life used to be. I mean, I retired out of games about 2 years ago. Now I do a lot more manufacturing and things like that. Obviously, which being down in Dongguan is kind of the home of manufacturing for a lot of things. So it depends on the day. I mean, it's I guess no different to being back in Australia. You do your full day's work. Some days a bit later than others. The only difference I find here is that being in manufacturing and working with factories, you travel to the factories.
Yeah, you got to get there.
I mean, this province of Guangdong is just massive.
It's factory after factory after
huge.
factory.
I think there's a population of probably 150 million or something like that.
It is the biggest.
In this province, it's a huge place. And people don't realize that there's just so many things are manufactured here. And there's literally like little villages which are devoted to they do LEDs. And this factory does our shoelaces. And this little village over here does bricks or anything else. So there's nothing I can't find, to be honest, here, if you just drive. And when I say villages, I always joke about the fact that a village here is 3 million people.
What kind of manufacturing do you do?
Which is like half the size of the biggest city in Australia. That's a village.
What kind of things you guys make?
Yeah, we do a lot of the retail displays now. So when you go into retail stores around the world and you see like Bose products or Sennheiser or Sonos and stuff like that, so the displays that kind of hold the headphones or the sound bars or the television walls and stuff like that.
So there's a lot of parts to source.
A lot of parts to kind of create, basically. Yeah, you got to
Create.
source the different things. It's everything from wood, metals, acrylics, all different kinds of stuff. So it's a real change from what I've been doing for a long time. I mean, I love the gaming industry. Was happy to retire and leave it where it was, and I was looking for something different. And this happened, has fallen in my lap at the time, and manufacturing it's a good trade to be able to learn.
You enjoy working with the Chinese today after 12 years being here in China, like factories, and a lot of people get frustrated a lot, right?
Yeah, I think being able to change from Shanghai to Dongguan and also change industries. I'm meeting people I'm not used to, different types of Chinese.
When did you move here? Sorry.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah. So
and how's it been so far?
Good. We've little waving things there.
Yeah, I got.
Oh, it's the egg. You always get egg
the
on
beard.
You always get the egg on the beard here.
You guys want to get that over here? We put it over here.
Yeah.
You're gonna get the.
Yeah, the bits.
All right. So you were telling us about coming to Dongguan. What's it been like?
It's a change. You're going from a city of 25 million plus people in Shanghai. It's a big city, right? Down to a place in Dongguan, which I think is 8 million people. I think down.
Yeah, 8 to 10.
Depends who you ask. Yeah,
again,
something like that.
Bigger than any city in Australia. Again, so
Yeah.
it's to me, it feels like going to a village. I know it's all spread out here. Compared to that, so it's a change. You have to get used to the lifestyle here, the food, the people are definitely different. Even the language is a lot more Cantonese spoken here.
Yeah.
Than Shanghai, it's a lot more Mandarin. So I learned some more Mandarin. Didn't really learn much Cantonese.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that the people in Shanghai kind of look down on the rest of China. What can you say about that?
You know what? It's funny because all my time in Shanghai, most of the people that I met are my friends up there, my Chinese friends, or even the young guys who used to work for me. They don't come from Shanghai.
Oh, okay.
I have to remember about it. I think it's something crazy, like a third of the people in Shanghai are from somewhere else.
Similar to Dongguan.
Yeah, probably a little bit similar to Dongguan. Yeah. I mean, you have a lot more people here. I think there are true locals here,
I
but
think much more than third.
Yeah.
I mean, Dongguan, 8 million people. Yeah, maybe I think less than 2.
1.5 or 2 are locals.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to do a little when I had my own studio and I had 25 guys kind of thing, they're all from different places. And it was great because we'd have a dinner out every now and then, a little celebration or party, and they're sharing their stories from where they come from and their cities. And I just, over time you realize just how diverse this place is. From the culture, the food, the languages. Even they describe their hometown as I just really, you've got mountains like that, or you've got desert like that, or you've got nothing, right? It's just wherever you come from. It was just amazing. But everybody came to Shanghai with the hope of trying to make it. Trying to get somewhere, right? So they all had the same spirit. I mean, I guess I came to China the same thing, to grow myself, to make it somewhere. And
So actually, I think I've seen it here over the years with my employees. I guess you can probably confirm it. So people coming from outside, from more rural areas, are the ones that want to make it, right? They want to work hard for it. And the people that grew up right there in the city, they're a bit more lazy. Is it your experience too?
I guess it depends on how you push them.
Yeah, but I mean, how much you can push them till they break? I mean, they break much faster.
Definitely, if you're from a smaller place, you're definitely hungry. I mean, no matter where you are in the world, if you're in a small, a guy from a country village goes to the biggest city of Sydney or somewhere, you're definitely going to get hungry and try to get the best.
But not only they experience more, the hardships, more hard work. They needed to work hard even back home. So they have
the ethics. I think if you're from a certain place, everybody has to work hard there.
It's a lot of the whole thing about going back home with your tail between your legs. They don't want to do that.
Right.
So they'll endure more things until...
Shanghai was definitely like that, because Shanghai is the kind of place, particularly if you're from the tech or gaming area, like there are guys who have come from nothing, countryside somewhere, young tech guys who have now got multi-million-dollar gaming companies, driving Ferraris and all this kind of stuff. Like they just hit a magic game, but they came literally with very little. You've got these stories that exist out there of a few people who really made an indie sensation.
You mean they came from rural areas?
They came from, somewhere else outside of Shanghai.
So people that grew up without
maybe a tier 3 city, and they've come there, they've worked their asses off. They built a good team, and they just
made it.
Their studio got bored, or the game did really well. So there's a lot of great stories like that in the gaming industry. That's what I liked about the kind of gaming culture in Shanghai.
Do they have? Is it I guess 30, 40-year-olds Chinese now? They did not grow up with computers, right? I mean, they were a bit later than us, let's say. Does this show with people working in the industry?
Well, that's a good question. I guess so. Yeah. I mean, these days, like the Shanghai gaming community that I know of, they're probably now well into their 30s or early 40s, right? So they were, like gaming culture exploded like 12 years ago, right? And everyone was like, I'm going to make a game, right? I want to do this, right? And everyone had the kind of stars in their eyes to be able to do that.
I mean, they didn't have Nintendo when they were kids.
No, they didn't. They grew up in internet cafes a lot of the times, just sneaking down there and playing some games and learning it. Very early days of PC online games and things like that. And then when mobile exploded and became the next big thing, that younger generation who are now probably late 20s and 30s, they were really into gaming from a young age and were able to kind of get a chance to have a go. But I mean, you go there, you get a team, you get an idea, you just got to get an investor. That's all you really need to get going.
Yeah.
It's hard to bankroll yourself, but if you can get someone who can believe in you and do that, then there's a chance.
What do you think about, a couple of years ago there was a lot of news, right, about those places for kids that are addicted to games.
Oh yeah, you mean like those like soldier camps they send them out to?
Yeah.
Like it's like it had a hard time. Like China's really cracked down on those regulations. In the early days, when they had people were allowed to spend too much time in the internet cafe, and they were getting so addicted to it, there was problems that were happening, right? Social problems, stuff like that. But the government, as it does pretty effectively here, it cracked down on that. Now every game here has to go through a stringent kind of process to make sure it's got anti-addiction behaviors in the game.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Which is the opposite of what a gaming company wants to do, right?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, the gaming company doesn't want to keep you there for like 8 hours stuck to your chair. We just want you to come back every day and spend, kind of thing now. But you go to internet gaming cafes, they can monitor. Everyone has those Chinese ID cards. They can monitor who you are and where you go. They put regulation stops on certain games to stop you playing too long of a certain type of game. It's made a good. It's helped, definitely.
So you think gaming addiction is very serious?
Yeah, I think it. Yes. I think it. Like it's like anything in the world. It's if you get the wrong person who doesn't know how to control what they do, then it's like anything these days in any culture. Right. So, but the government took notice of it. They took a few issues that were going on, and they stamped it out. But I remember watching some TV shows where they were taking these kids with bad social behaviors and taking them almost like this soldier military camp.
The boot camp, yeah.
Touch a game, boom. Think about a game, boom.
Right.
Nobody wants to go there, right?
I wanted to move a little bit onto coming to China with a very young family. And Chinese education or Western education and all the decisions that you have to make in that department. What can you share with us in terms of how that was for you and your wife and your children?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we got here and you get kind of stuck with a choice. Do you want your kids to learn Chinese or not learn Chinese? Mm-hmm. And I think that just by a little bit by coincidence and about what my wife and I wanted, we wanted the kids to, if we ever leave China, wouldn't it be great if they spoke Chinese, right? How good would that be to have two languages, right? Chinese language and English. So the kindergarten that lived next to our house in Lujiazui in Shanghai was a Singaporean kindergarten, which means they taught Chinese and English. So, when they're old enough, a couple of years old, basically, we took them into the kindergarten. It was convenient. My wife could take them there easily enough. And they had Chinese teachers. So that was their first exposure to getting Chinese language taught to them. Also in the original days, I think the first couple of years, because we had two young kids, we had an ai. Ai is like the maid. The maid kind of thing. Yeah, the ai, the maid kind of thing that came in.
Or just
we had mostly not living with us. We did try about a year where there was living with us, and it gets kind of a little bit funky, It's like, hello, oh shit,
good morning,
good morning. Yeah, so we didn't do that too much, but so the kids from a young age were listening to some Chinese from the IE at the time, getting kindergarten, which was learning
Shanghai
more Chinese.
Shanghai dialect.
No, it was just Mandarin, straight Mandarin. So, and that gave them enough that we ended up when they went to primary school, which is the other school next door, was a brand new experimental school, which was pretty cool, right? Because they're to explain experimental school. So
yeah, what is an experimental school?
Yes, it's basically
they do experiments.
They do lots of experiments. No more games. It's like that. No, the government here, what it does is it understands it has a fairly regimented school program across the countryside, but what it wants to do is it wants to keep trying to update the way it teaches its curriculum, and to do that, they open up these. Only a handful, what they call experimental, where they change the teaching style and the teaching patterns, supposedly.
Yeah.
I don't know too much because I don't know how much to compare it to, but they're supposed to do that. Then they trial it for a number of years, and if it looks like it's a success and the kids are learning better, they'll roll that across the nation.
They'll implement it.
They'll just go, yep, that's a good thing, let's do that. So it was still a Chinese stream, but it had some English classes as well. But it's probably about 70% Chinese speaking, 30% kind of English speaking. And, we thought, let's throw them in there for a couple of years, get their language ability up there. There's a couple other foreign kids in there. Probably about 60% were still Chinese, local Chinese over there.
Other than the more
they
English than other Chinese schools, how was the pressure, homework, stuff like that we know in Chinese schools is very, very serious, right?
Oh, there goes back then it was not too bad. From the experimental school, there was moderate. They of course they're young at the grade 1, grade 2, grade 3 kind of thing. It wasn't that bad back then at that particular school. But I can understand from middle schools and high schools it gets much more brutal here in the system.
What time did it start and finish?
Probably like 8 something in the morning, and they'd probably finish around 4 something. I think it was.
So kind of similar to other schools.
They get up and they all do the exercises here in the morning. If you guys have probably seen the schools. You have this music that goes on that echoes across an entire suburb.
There's
the flag raising. The kids are doing the calisthenics and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of crazy. And they do that, and then they get into classes.
In the school right now, our kids go to the same school, and my kids told me that when they do the flag, they do the anthem. The foreigners don't have to.
Yeah.
They actually told the foreigners.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. Yeah,
you don't
it's
have
okay.
To. Yeah, it's okay.
Which is kind of.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Pretty understanding
no
like
need to
that.
kneel. Yes. All right, guys. Do we take a short break and then we come back with more of Jim or Tim? Tim Page.
James Bond.
Okay. Getting noisy in the back there. Got the group going on back there. Anyway.
So this is
you get used to that though.
Yeah, this is the thing that in China, right? People are really loud.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I thought they're upset.
Yeah.
On the phone, right? They're talking to someone on the phone and they get really loud. And they're just talking.
They're saying,
they're not upset.
Mom, I love
they're
you.
not fighting. Yes,
Mom, I forgive you. Mom.
I
love you.
The
But
taxi
if you're gonna love her,
drivers.
don't hit her.
The taxi drivers. Yeah.
Oh, I love taxi driving.
Talking about taxi driving, actually, that's a good topic.
Taxi driving is a good one.
We all drive now in China, but
Yeah.
I only drive the last 7 years. I've been here 13 years before without driving.
Yeah.
10 years before. How about you? Did you drive from the beginning?
No, I probably about halfway, or I think.
So you did take taxis. How about you, Fernando?
I did the taxis.
I had a driver.
You had a driver.
The school gave me a
living
driver.
the high life.
No. Well, because
I
you're
had
an
a
idiot.
driver.
I had a chauffeur.
Yeah.
No. Basically, it was a driver that took me
Right. So
everywhere.
you didn't do
and
much
which is-
taxi?
pretty
and
common.
at the second year, I bought a motorcycle. So I never
did-
actually took taxis.
Didn't do
That's
taxis.
good.
The only time I
That's
took a
good.
taxi was when my father had a heart attack. And I told my boss I need to go to the Shenzhen airport.
Oh, wow.
He took me to the Shenzhen train station.
Okay, one-time taxi. That's and you got
Yeah.
it 0 out
Gosh.
of 1.
Yes.
Gosh.
So how was your taxis are
But when
Before
first,
Didi,
Yeah,
I mean-
before Didi, like Uber kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was taxi driving to work in Shanghai all the time.
Right.
Goes under the river, across the other
Right.
side. So I think I practically learned all my Chinese from taxi drivers.
Right.
So apparently I speak like a taxi driver,
Right.
which is kind of. I do this now when I go to the garage, right, to get fuel in the car. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife goes, "You sound like a taxi driver." And I was just like this.
Did you have-
And the guy always nods and understands, right?
I
it's
got
like,
you, man.
I got it, dude. Yeah, I said, bro, I got you.
Do you have a taxi driver that speaks Chinese to you, and then you
All
say
the time.
Timbutong, and then they write in Chinese and tell you? Did you have that?
I tried to struggle in kind of caveman at the very beginning. You
Yeah.
know, just trying to you try to write it down the best you can. Say, like, just take me here, go left, right, straight, kind of thing. I got lucky. Like, I never had any bad taxi experiences. That wasn't my own fault.
Is it the same in Shanghai? I remember when I used to take taxis, which, by the way, taxis are way cheaper in
super
China
cheaper, yeah.
than the West. So
Crazy
I
cheap.
thought it's great. I take
Yeah.
taxis all the time. Back home, I don't.
That's because they have no seatbelts, right?
They,
They save
they
their
have no
money.
seatbelt. They smoke in the car. They whatever, right?
They don't do that now.
Not now.
Do
They used to.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
used to.
They
They
used
used
to.
to. It got much
Little
better.
better.
But I remember when
Flying
like it's
torpedoes.
5, 6 o'clock, right? I don't know if it's the same in Shanghai. It's 5, 6 o'clock. You want to go home. You were trying to get a taxi. They just don't stop. They are available, but they don't
Oh, no,
stop.
they ask you,
because
where are
they're
you
not-
going?
Yes, where are you going? I was like, what do
Ah,
you
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You're a
yeah.
taxi. I
What
go
do you
wherever I
care?
want. I go
Yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
And sometimes arguments,
Do
right?
you know what? Australia's exactly the same. They ask you where you're going, or if you're male at nighttime on a Friday night. Nope, not taking you.
Right.
Oh, really?
It's
the
oh god,
same.
yeah, it's pretty bad in Australia. Like many times I've had to walk home in Melbourne from the casino somewhere. I'm like, I just can't get it.
So
you're
they
a
don't
little
wanna
bit
take
drunk
you.
as you're coming out. You know, they don't want to
Because
take
you're
you.
trouble, basically.
Because
they
you're a
think.
dude, or you live the wrong direction, and they're like,
But,
yeah, it's
but are they
really,
allowed
really
to
bad.
refuse?
I guess so.
But here it wasn't because of that. It was just like, no, I'm going off my shift and it's not in that direction
It's true.
or
There's
whatever.
there's a certain time of night, like 6 or something like it is, where
Yes.
they go for their dinner. You see them all like lined up to get their dinners. They're
Right.
just like, no, kind of thing.
Right.
No, not only that, it's also that they're going to hand the car to another driver.
Yes,
True,
yes.
true,
So,
true,
and
true.
if they're late, then there's penalties. So, like, I mean, if you're going that way, I'm
That's
going that
true.
way to hand off the car. So,
Yeah.
But the misunderstanding, the language is just getting
That's
got me
fine.
upset.
That's
You
just
know?
don't want to take me.
Yeah, they don't want to take me. I'm
That's-
going there.
that's
you know?
racist.
I used to get upset by it, then I just realized, you know what? They got a job to do. They got to work, kind of stuff. The part that got me the most was when it rains.
Yeah.
Right?
June
like in
here,
Shanghai, when it rains, the entire city gets a taxi. It's just like everybody.
and no taxis,
Like I've sat
right.
there with an umbrella for like an hour just going, I ain't going to get a taxi, right? It's just,
Right.
It just ain't going to
Right.
happen. But yeah, luckily now in Shanghai, they've built more subway lines, so you
Mm-hmm.
can literally just traverse the whole city now and go anywhere.
And that's why we bought cars. I mean,
Well,
I think part
down-
of the reason.
Down here, yeah, when I moved down here a couple of years ago, I already had my driver's license in Shanghai, but I didn't drive too much up there just because the car parking is expensive. But coming down here, you have to drive, you know, if you're particularly like out to the factories and stuff like that. So it's an interesting experience driving. down here.
How would you describe driving in China?
Wow, it's you get different kinds of drivers.
Right.
You get the guy in the Merc that just doesn't want to indicate and swerves and goes like 140 and just thinks he can just go all the way through. Then you get like the newbie who sits in the fast lane and goes like this about 60 kilometers an hour.
Yeah,
and
he's
traffic
driving
banging
with
up
his
everywhere.
nose.
Then you get the
And most of them just looking at their phone and
oh
driving
yeah,
very slow.
You get the phone lookers.
That
you
sense
get
of
the,
safety that slow speed gives you.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
Yeah, I
ones
can-
that scare me the most is the bus drivers.
Right.
Because they just kind of turn without looking so much, and they're like a long wagon. They drive a bus like a car.
Yeah.
Truck drivers are good. They drive a truck like a truck, right?
Yeah.
But a bus driver is like they think it's a Ferrari.
But there are hardly any stop
Right.
signs that people actually obey.
The stop signs here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, right? It's like back home there are a lot of stop signs.
Actually, I don't see many stop signs. To be
Yes.
honest, it's usually a
Yeah.
traffic light or it's kind of
I
nothing.
mean, you
right?
see
So-
my eyes rolling like, I don't remember
Stop
seeing
sign,
many.
right?
Yeah,
You just got the zebra and like,
I got one I can remember in my head. But it's an actual stop sign, and nobody stops here except for me. Right?
For me, I get used to it. You adapt. I get used to it, and I
You
just adapt myself to drive not like them, but while they're driving on the same road. Someone like my wife cannot. I mean, she just every
Well,
time will say something. She's like. She didn't even look like a driver came from a side road.
Yeah.
They don't look. They
Yeah,
don't look.
they'll
They
just-
just
No.
go, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't even.
Look, the way that I say driving in China is like a video game. Yeah, expect the unexpected. Like, he's gonna do something stupid, so I'm just gonna go this way. He's gonna do something ridiculous, so I'm gonna go.
Yeah,
so
you're
always like,
you just kind of guess it and kind of.
And a good driver should
Anticipating.
expect the unexpected in any country.
Yeah.
That's a good driver with always alert, right? But in China, it's heightened.
But when you're on the main road like that and you see them trying to pull out and they don't look, because what it is that, like, for an Australia, you are taught to turn your head to your chin.
Yes.
Because there's always a blind spot, right? So
Right.
you always got like that and you're like that. In fact, if you do not do that, you don't get your test, right?
They just don't
But
bother.
here, they're taught to turn their head slightly and look at the mirror, but not actually turn their head.
yeah.
So that's
The
why
blind spot is totally
correct. So there's a lot of people getting the blind spot. So,
But we know it already. So we're like, we see someone coming. We're not like, we know we have the right, but we're still going to be like, okay, let's see what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
But I'd say at 12 years here, I've never had an accident. So touch wood. No,
well,
whatever.
right.
But never had an accident yet. I've seen some
Never had
accidents. There's a lot of rear ending because they just get too close to each other.
Fender bender.
But the one thing I do like here is you know when it's pouring rain here, right? You're in the,
Yeah.
on the traffic. They put their hazard lights on.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I
They
first
do.
saw that, I'm like, what the hell are they doing, right?
But I think that's a
it's
great
a warning
idea.
to tell you that it's either really rainy or if they're stopping quickly, they put their hazards on.
Yeah.
Which is great because sometimes you're speeding up, you don't know over a little bit of a dip or something that there's a lot of cars that are like slowed right down.
Yeah.
And that's where accidents happen. But they'll actually courteously put their hazard lights on. And
Also
I
to,
love it.
to-
I think it's
to
great.
increase visibility. Like
Yeah,
when
it
it
helps.
rains
They need
so
a lot
hot.
of protection. They know the
When I
other
first-
drivers are also Chinese on the road.
When I first saw
it's a pain in
that,
the ass to get your car here.
when I
If
first
you have
saw
an
that, I
accident.
was like, well, that's smart. That makes a lot of sense. And I started
Makes
doing
sense,
it.
doesn't it?
You know
Yeah.
what else I started doing? Like the whole Japanese one, when somebody actually lets you in, for example, you made a mistake and you oh, can I go in? And then they
People-
flash the hazard lights for a couple of times.
People are pretty
to say
courteous
thank
like that.
you.
In Australia, they'll never let you go in front of them. They will fight you to the death.
really?
If they don't
In
go in front of you.
Australia?
Oh God, yeah.
Really?
Like if you got a couple of cars,
Because here
and you're
they do
like,
it.
and you're like, I want to cut in. Like here, they're pretty good. Like you know,
I don't
I'll
think
find
so.
I find 1 and 2 for meters goes, yeah, no worries. As long as you push your bumper in front, they're like, yeah, no problem, go in there. And there's no arguments, there's no screaming. You're like,
No,
in
there is
Australia,
no screaming.
They go
There is no.
nuts.
There is no road rage.
Absolutely no road rage.
Oh,
Never seen it
there,
here.
it
Here.
depends. I've seen.
You've seen it?
But not
Damn,
much.
have you seen it once? I've never seen it here.
No, you know what really pisses me off? The guys who drive on the service lane on the highway. Like there's a traffic jam. There's
Why
been
someone
an
going
accident.
backwards? Just literally was.
And they get on the service
They've obviously
lane.
got on the freeway and they've gone. No, it was a ramp. On ramp going on the freeway. They're going. Oh my God, I've got on the wrong ramp. And then they've turned around and driving back down the on ramp.
Seen those videos too. No, but these guys are like they think they're smarter than the rest. And then everybody starts following. So what I do, and my wife absolutely hates me for
Do you
this.
gravitate a little bit to the right?
Yeah, so I put
just
half my car in, like
slightly.
bang, bang, bang. Like, what
Just
you gonna do?
just
What you
one
gonna do
wheel.
with the rest of your life?
Just one.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
that's
And that's
what
how
I do.
road rage starts.
Let them honk. They love using the.
Good job, Fernando.
horn.
You've just brought road rage to China. Nice
Right.
work, bro. Nice work, man.
I mean, but you have to adapt. You have your personality. You have to be like
That's fun though.
calm. You know, you have to because you're gonna get road rage with the way
You
they
can.
drive.
You
Yeah.
can. I've seen some people get, particularly Westerners, can get the bit of road rage.
Right.
If you just relax, you just drive, you just plan your time,
Yes.
you're fine.
But
It's-
is it the okay? Why do they drive this way? I mean, one theory which I believe in is, I mean, okay, U.S. they drive for 100 years now.
Uh-huh.
You know, Australia probably similar.
About
I
the
don't
same.
know. In China, they really drive 20 years. People have cars. I mean,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, it's such a young
new.
driving culture.
Cars are like having a lot of cars. Now you look around, there's cars everywhere. Everybody has a car.
Yeah.
But 10 years ago, like none of my Chinese friends had cars. Right? They just like, I can't afford it. There's not many cars here.
Yeah.
A lot of the brands were imported, super expensive. It's hard to get your license. But
Now you can get a
Now-
car for
now-
a brand new Chinese car for 30,000 RMB, which is what? It's like
$5,000.
$5,000. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you know, we have Chinese cars. I mean, you have a nice Chinese car.
Si, si.
I have a common Chinese car. Build my dream, build your dream. Yeah, but you have a foreign car here.
I got a Kia, but it's
Kia.
all made here. Yeah,
It's made in China.
Yeah, yeah. Most of the foreign cars now made here.
How long does it cost to maintain a car?
Cost.
Yeah.
To
Cost to
maintain,
maintain a car.
the service, right?
Gosh,
Yeah.
I guess it depends if you go to like the dealerships to get it serviced or not. Like mine's probably a couple thousand a year. I think.
I think if you
2,000
change the
RMB.
oil, when you change the oil, it's only like 280 RMB, the actual oil change. Yes.
My oil changes are more into 700.
Yeah,
more
but
or
how
less.
often do you do it? And the different car?
Yeah, it was a Benz, and it would charge about 700,
Yeah,
800.
I mean, you probably use better oil than I use for my BYD. Probably, right? So I put 92.
Uh-huh.
You didn't put 92 in your Benz.
No, 95, 98, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm using
right.
95.
That's
You use 95.
the
Clean engine is
octane on the gas
Right,
that we buy.
right. But gas prices are also quite cheap, right?
Now it is, yeah. It's just
Yes.
dropped way down.
Now it's even more cheap. What is it now?
It has been cheaper. It's
6, right?
Like it used to cost me about 350 RMB to fill my tank.
Right.
Now like 250 RMB, so I'm saving about $20 now
Uh-huh.
compared to 6 months ago.
What is it in Australia?
I don't know, to be honest, right now.
Yes.
I remember when I used to go there, it's like expensive.
I always need
Right.
to
Like
do a
really
calculation
expensive.
because in Colombia they sell gas by the gallon. Here is by the liter. So
Yes,
I'm like,
yeah, liters.
multiply by 5. How
you
much
can
Ah,
that
yeah,
is.
you do gallons?
You do
Yeah,
I
gallons,
don't know
yeah.
gallons, I
No?
know liters.
What do you guys do
Yeah,
liters
we
as
do
well?
liters,
What
yes.
about Australia?
Liters in Australia, yeah.
Liters as well?
Yeah, liters.
So we the only...
And,
Liter up.
and another thing here is the the GPS, right?
Yeah.
So I use Baidu.
Uh-huh.
What do you use?
Apple.
Apple?
Apple is like
It works in China, yes.
Well, yeah, because they buy their data from a Chinese company, so they can get all
Okay.
the stuff like that.
Right.
But I go to new factories around Guangdong all the time. Like it's a giant state, as I
Right.
said earlier, province. And I can find I type it in there, or they send
You
me.
can actually find
yeah,
them.
or they send me a pin.
Right.
As you know, through WeChat and stuff
then you
like that.
open
And
with-
you just open it on Apple
with
Maps.
Apple Maps.
And it's perfect. I've never gotten
But
lost
do
here
you
ever.
need, because I don't use Apple phone, do you need VPN to use
No.
That's the
map?
thing,
No?
you don't.
No,
Google
not
you
at
do,
all.
right? Google,
Yeah,
forget it.
yeah.
But
Yeah, Apple Maps, yeah. No, they're Apple's, they're
But I still think that Baidu would be more accurate, being local.
Did you know that they have a new satellite system?
Baidu?
No, China.
Oh.
China, they developed their own GPS system that is top notch, is way better than anything else out there in the world. Like 2 weeks ago, they were releasing some information about that.
Yeah.
It's got
I
like
believe it. Like,
four satellites more than any other network in the world, and it brings it down to like 3 or 4 meters
Yeah.
difference.
But what I wanted to say is that in the beginning, 7 years ago when I started driving, using the GPS, the Chinese roads is a bit different than back home. Actually, they have, I think, very extensive, roads, that highways, and a lot of kind of complicated junctions and whatever. And it took me a while, and I made a lot of mistakes with the GPS. And after a while, I got used to it, and it's easier. But in the beginning, did you find that too in the beginning?
Not too bad. In the beginning, yeah, a little bit. These days, the GPSs are awesome. Like I've been able to navigate to some amazing places here that you wouldn't be able to get to by bus.
And you still don't know how to get to your factory without GPS, right?
Pretty much. You do it often enough, you learn, right? But
Right.
so every now and then, like Apple will give me this really strange back road to go through, which is through
Like,
a village,
really?
and it's
Here?
like it's so narrow. You get like pull this in.
Yeah.
There's like a river next to you, and all the locals are
Yeah.
sitting in their chairs with their shirts off, cigarette, having a look at you. And like,
But this
I found
is the
some
best way.
crazy ass little. Yeah, but apparently it's the best way. And what it does, it bypasses you through a little village which is in a town. That village often has those gates, the fronts. You go into the village there. And super local. But I kind of enjoy it.
I just learned to trust
I trust
the map.
I freaking
it's-
hate
If you
it
think
gets
a
me
different
through.
way, I tried it before. No, trust
I'll
the-
go through and I'll see some really interesting local
Yeah,
sites
yeah.
too. So
The worst thing for me is Guangzhou.
Guangzhou, Shenzhen.
Guangzhou is
Because
Guangzhou
of
is worse,
because all
yeah.
the levels.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
and
it's
you look at
it's like
the,
one of-
the map, and you get 3 levels. So which bridge am I supposed? Which ramp? Which?
Well, you gotta think,
And if you mess it up, it's half an hour to go
Yes.
around and get
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
where
yeah.
you were.
Well, Guangzhou's-
That's what I don't like.
talking about Cantons, like one of the oldest cities in China. That's
Right.
like built on built on built on
It's
built
like
over so
Gotham
many
City,
years.
man.
Yeah, it's like it's Gotham City times 10.
Yeah.
So you're right. You get on the wrong off ramp or on ramp, you're gonna spend about 30 minutes to
Getting back to where you
But
were.
I don't
Yeah,
really
yeah.
have much experience of driving with GPS. When I drove back home, many years ago.
Not in Australia. It's too easy.
No GPS. So we knew the roads. It's like I knew how to get to places.
Yeah.
It's because you live in China long enough.
Yes.
Melbourne feels like a village. It's like a country town. It's like, yep, I know where to go. It's like,
Yes.
off you go.
But
That's all grids, right?
driving in China is great because it made us know the country, know the city where we
Absolutely.
are at much better,
Like
right?
from here, about 2.5 hours away, we're in one of the most beautiful beach areas.
Right,
Little
so-
island called Hailing Island down there that I would never have known about or gotten to
Which
if
one?
I
Where?
didn't have a car.
It's summer. I want to go.
Oh, Hailing Island, beautiful.
Hainan.
It's no Hailing.
Haili, not
Hailing.
Hainan.
Yeah, not Hainan Sanya, but Hailing. It's about 2.5 hours drive. And I
From
never,
here?
And one of my staff previously told me about it, local staff, and I just went, can you plug it into my GPS? And he went, I went, okay. I mean, the great thing here, when you have everything integrated to your phone, like you can book hotel, GPS, payment, everything's done by your phone, right? So literally I could just like book the hotel by my phone, done. Get on the GPS, just drive with the family, went down there, found this little island. It was just pure white sand, like clean beach, white sand.
What was
like
that?
Hawaii.
Is that the Maoming area? What you told me?
Near
Which
there?
province is it?
Yeah, it's still in
Guangdong?
Still in Guangdong, but yeah, not so far as Maoming, but it's kind of close to that.
So going west.
I think it's
west.
Yangjian, I think, is the main city. It's kind of almost south. It's about an hour from Zhuhai. But you go to this little island. It's like there's not many people there.
Is there a bridge
hotels
or
there.
ferry?
Yes,
or
one bridge
Okay.
to go over there, and it's got this most amazing little fishing port.
Uh-huh.
Like you go there and you realize where a lot of the ocean fish come from is like this little seaport. Like literally you look out the old-fashioned boats that go out there every morning. It's probably about 300 of them.
Wow.
Or 400 of these little fishing boats every morning at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. They all disperse out there, catch their ocean fish, bring it in, goes to the market, freezes it up, takes it off kind of thing. It's just a beautiful little place. And the water is just warm. Warm.
Nice.
Like it's like walking into a bathtub. You're like, oh my, it's clear, it's warm.
We were talking about why did we get cars, and I will tell you the reason why I got a car was because of my dog, basically.
Right.
Because I had a motorcycle, but when I got a dog, I wanted to take my dog to places and parks and beaches and whatnot. And that's one thing that I like to do every summer, just make sure to take my dog to the beach, and that's why I was asking about this one.
Yeah,
But
beautiful. Really,
Today,
really.
I mean, first of all, today with Didi, which is like you say, that's Uber. Actually, they bought China Uber, right?
Yeah.
And if I was single with no kids, I would probably do Didis. But still, I mean, of course, it's good to have a car, like I say, to know places. So where you said you drive to these places, 2.5 hours from here, and
GPS away.
what's
Boom.
the furthest you drove in China?
Furthest I've driven? We've probably gone almost to Hainan.
To Hainan.
Like driving all the way across
So there
to
is
Hainan,
there is a ferry, ferry.
You can to the Hainan. We didn't go onto the island
Haikou.
from but around Haikou, like almost made it all the way to that area, and then came back in. I just wanted to see the coastline to see what it was like. You know, being an Australian now, we like beaches and stuff like that, and I was super impressed. Like these beaches were just like world-class type beaches. Of course, the village there, like there's not a lot of Western restaurants. It's very local. You have to eat, local seafood. You go to the hotels. There's not too much
that's part of the
English
appeal.
spoken.
That is
But
great.
you know what?
Yeah.
Everybody was really friendly and helpful. Like there's nothing we couldn't have done there. We found this kooky little wax museum down there.
What?
It's just this crazy wax museum right in the middle of nowhere on this island.
Did you find it on the map? Or how did you?
Just driving around. I'm a driver. I just love to okay, there's a map. Hey guys, we're gonna go to that end of the island. I'm just gonna drive and have a look for cool stuff. And we saw this little wax museum, and it was like had all these it was actually really good actually. I was so surprised. It was
What kind of characters then?
every character you think of. They had all the
Beckham.
super action. They had all the President Xi. They had Trump. They had
Yao Ming.
they had the North Korean president.
That's recent, Trump.
They had all these kind of stuff. They had Jack Ma from Alibaba and stuff like that. They had Steve Jobs. And they looked really
what's the
good.
furthest you've
But
driven?
the cool thing about this wax museum is you could walk up and interact with it and take photos with it. Like there wasn't like don't touch the wax, right?
Yeah.
They're like no, you actually walk up and sit next to them and pose and do selfies and stuff like that. So we had a great time.
What about you, Zip? What's the furthest you've driven?
The furthest I've driven here in China, I couldn't be not so far. I think probably Guangzhou, Shenzhen. I don't know if I went.
That's
farther
close.
than-
That's
very
It's like an hour.
close.
My
Well,
longest,
Zhuhai, of course.
I think I
Zhuhai.
got 5 hours is probably the longest.
Zhuhai, of course.
my longest
So,
one was Zhengzhou, which is 1,800
It's
kilometers.
a decent drive.
That's 2 days,
Yeah.
basically.
Two
You have to
days.
sleep somewhere.
I hope it wasn't on Chinese New Year.
It was on October 1st, National Day. But the good thing about this, I don't know how it is in other countries, highways are free.
Yes,
Yeah,
every
free.
They're
holiday
free.
here,
Yeah.
free. All
And
the toll booths free.
they're free and they're standing. There's no movement, right? Like
Is it
with
the
all the
longest
traffic
parking lot?
jams.
No, what I do is I go like a couple of days after.
Yeah, okay.
And come back a
you
couple
do
of
the
days
smart thing.
early.
Because it'll be extended holiday when they have the
Yeah.
free tolls, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
I mean,
So-
jams in China it can get crazy, right? Like during the
highways?
holidays.
you
like,
got
just
to go
don't do
early,
it.
come back late. If you're going to time it around there.
Yeah. Are you planning to, like some people drive to to Shanghai, or to even closer, much closer to Guilin.
Yeah, Guilin.
Yangshuo.
Guilin. We flew there one Chinese New Year. That was a good trip actually. Guilin's the place where they have the $20 bill or 20 kwai bill.
Yeah, the
Elephant Hill.
Yangshuo.
Elephant Hill.
Is it Elephant Hill? You kind of got
Elephant
that
Hill.
cool view. So we wanted to go see that, and we
Lijiang.
went. Yeah. So we went there during.
Sorry, Elephant Hill is
Lijiang,
somewhere else.
yeah.
We went there during Chinese New Year, and we thought, hell, no one's going to go there. Because they all go back to their hometown. So it's like one of the most popular destinations in China. We went there, and there was literally no one there. Like, we went up to the mountain, we went to the tea plantations, we went to all these caves, and we're like the only people wandering around. It was so great.
During Chinese New Year.
During Chinese New Year.
How come there was no one there?
We went a little bit early because people go back to their hometowns, and that Yangshuo, the city that's kind of there, it's not a big city, so not many people go back there, and everyone else was going back to their hometowns at the time.
Right.
So we had a great trip there with not many people.
I have the greatest story about Yangshuo. My brother came to visit, and we drove to Yangshuo, and he wanted to go see the rice plantations.
Yeah.
So I went to the tourist office and said, like, okay, so how does this package work? Oh, we pick you up at 7, and we're back by 12. He's flying the next day back to UK because he was studying in UK.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is great. So I drove him. He doesn't speak a word of Chinese, right? I drove him, dropped him off at 7, got on the bus, got on the highway, and then the lady started explaining in very poor English to my brother, like, do you want a single bed or a double bed? And he's like, what? A double bed or a single bed? What? Yes, because we're coming back tomorrow at 12. I'm like, what?
The next
And they're already on the highway, and my brother's like,
no.
stop the bus, I can't go.
Oh no.
So they stop the bus and they drop him off at a gas station in the middle. A gas station that was open, it was closed. It was not open yet. Just built, but not. And he said that feeling of watching the bus, they drop him off there, and he just the bus driving away, and he's like
those
in
horror
the middle
movies, you know,
of
you just-
nowhere.
It's just like-
And he's like, come and pick me up. But he's a smart guy. He's like, look, I counted this many bridges from the entrance, so you will find me. Like, that they didn't say that it was the next day.
And he's gone, right? You've never heard from him since.
Actually, that's an
end of the story, right?
interesting topic. You know, family for us as expats in China, family visiting us, right?
Yeah.
Some people here been here a long time. Nobody ever visit them. I mean, I've been lucky. My parents, my sisters, they've been here more times than I can count. You know, like 10, 15 times. For you, your brother, you said, came here.
Yes, I mean, my parents, they came to visit me about 3 times.
They did come, okay.
Each time they would stay like 3 months, so it makes it worth it.
Right.
And my brother was studying in the UK, and he decided to come down here for a month because he had some recess or whatever. So that's what he did. He came to visit me. Took the opportunity.
How about you?
My mother's a regular visitor. She'll come up probably about 4 times a year.
Oh, really?
She'll come up,
4 times
comes
a
up.
year?
Yeah. She loves
my.
it. Yeah, well, she's retired now, so she'll come up, spend time with the
And
kids.
she likes it?
Yeah, she loves it up here. She'll even, she's done it in Shanghai, and now doing Dongguan. She'll get enough confidence to just walk around by herself, go to
Right.
the bank, go do some shopping by herself. She speaks no Chinese, of course, but you young people here all speak English. And
g'day.
she's figured it all out, right?
G'day,
She's fine. Good courage.
So what do we do? What expats do in China with families when they come? I mean, Yangshuo is definitely one place. My sister went.
Yeah,
Just put
Yangshuo's
them on
good.
the bus. They go there overnight or whatever. But there is always the pressure, right? The first time they come visit you, and I have some friends visiting me too, not just family. And I always guys, there is no kung fu in the street.
Yeah.
There is no.
Foshan.
Yeah. I mean, China is
Where
not
they all
what you
fight.
exactly think it is.
Everybody must go.
What do we recommend to people that come to China for visiting us?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends who comes. Like for us in Shanghai with my mother, it's like,
Shopping.
let's go to Disneyland. Let's take the kids.
It was
been
open
there.
already?
Yeah,
Was it open
Yeah,
already?
it was up there. So we
Right.
got, in Shanghai, you got Disneyland, you've got the Safari Park, you've got one of the best natural history museums I've ever been in my life. It's
Really?
up in Shanghai, beautiful, brand new in the last few years. So.
But I mean, here too, we can say you got
So-
Disneyland in Hong Kong. You got
Here-
Ocean Park.
Yeah, here you got
Nowadays you
Banyu,
got the Zhuhai.
Changlong.
The
Yeah,
Banyu Zoo, the
Chang-
Changlong, yeah.
Yeah, we go
Banyu,
to
Shimlong,
Changlong.
Really nice.
yes.
Yeah, that
So you-
circus thing is really good at Changlong.
There are a lot of Colombians in the circus, as I recently
yeah?
learned. Yeah.
But I mean, it's
You can tell by just yelling at them as they're doing their death-defying, acts, yelling at them in Colombian.
Go.
Yeah, I went to the circus the first time last year. Yeah, it's pretty good.
The Changlong.
Yeah, you went before,
Oh,
right?
But
amazing.
look, here
That's
locally,
amazing.
locally,
Yeah.
I
Really
always took my parents to Keyuan. They really
Right,
loved it.
in Dongguan. you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Yes.
Keyuan Garden is really, really nice.
Kuyang, is it?
Cayenne.
Keyuan.
I don't think I've been
The
there.
first times,
really nice.
The first times, I'm talking 15, 17 years ago, when my mom used to come, she always wanted to go to the Lohu. The product, what do you call it?
The fake stuff?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Fake
7
market.
stories.
Fake market. Yeah.
I
yeah.
got sick of hearing massage, and those fake stuff. So I was like, I told my mom after a few years, I'm not
Watches,
going anymore.
handbags.
I'm not going there
Back
anymore.
in the time was DVD, VCD, massage, all E.
And even they realize, I think people realize after a few years, maybe it's not so smart to buy there, the quality of the products
Yeah,
after
it's
a
true.
while too,
It's true.
The beginning
The
is like
100
charming,
RMB.
you can buy those things.
It's negotiating, right? You have a
Yeah,
little
The
fun doing that.
100 RMB Rolex. No, my
Right.
mom loved it was the silk market in Beijing. Absolutely fantastic.
Right.
And the thing is that everybody speaks different languages. So my mom starts speaking Spanish and they're like, hola, hola, señora, ¿qué
Right,
quiere comprar?
right.
And my mom's like, what?
Right.
And German, Italian, Portuguese, they just learn what to say.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. You been there?
No. I don't
Oh,
remember
it's
that.
an experience.
Is it?
It is, yeah.
How many places in China have you been to? I mean, people sometimes ask me how many
Ooh.
provinces, how many.
Gosh.
Have you think you travel a lot in China?
Yeah, a fair bit. Yeah. It's just through job. Like I've been, of course,
Like
up
the
to
north.
Beijing, Dongbei. Yeah, we've been skiing in
Harbin.
Dongbei, Harbin, Tianjin,
Shenyang.
Xi'an, all the way across then to the west side. You've got Sichuan area, Chengdu, all that kind of things. Like everywhere, even the middle. Been to the middle. There's still other places I want to see. Like you see famous photos, like, yep, I want to go there. There's a couple of those I've still got to do on my list, but it's probably 100 places, I guess.
What was
Yeah.
the best one?
Look, I love the beach. So I gotta
the
say,
one you told us
Hailing,
about.
we've probably been there like 4 or 5 times now, just because
And you're gonna
it's
keep going.
nice. Yeah, I think we'll probably keep going. And maybe this summer we might actually do the full drive to Hainan, because I'd like to go to Hainan Island and actually be able to drive around Hainan.
I've done that.
Right? So just to kind of check a few. Have you done it? It's good.
I've done that. The one thing that you need to be careful with is on the highway, they changed the maximum speed. And I paid a 2,000 RMB fine because I was going 120. And nothing changes on the road.
GPS.
But they
But
change the speed to
the
60.
But the GPS?
The GPS
always tell
says
you,
it.
man.
The GPS says it.
GPS.
I always switch them off because I'm like, I'm listening
Just
to my music.
Switch on the sound. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Why don't we take a very, very short break and we come back to continue talking with Team Page. Don't go anywhere. All right, guys, and we're back with Team Page. And, Tim,
back.
you told us at the beginning that you worked a lot of your life on video games. I'll have to say that I am from one of those generations that I was never really into video games. So
I played NBA Live 95. I think a lot of that. Yeah, 95. There was, yeah.
That was
like
the last
Windows
game, the
95.
last game you've ever played.
But I think maybe the same for you. I think video games is a waste of time. I would be bold saying right now. To
I'm just waiting for the stones
yeah.
to get thrown at us.
I'm waiting.
for the lynching to start.
I'm waiting for the punch here.
Just gonna exit over this way
Yes.
a little bit.
I mean, maybe that's a good start. What do you think about that? I mean, is it a waste of time?
I'm just looking back and like
Getting some
half the guys are playing games behind us right now.
Probably, I'm sure they do.
You got like 10 minutes just gonna do things. I've always liked games. It's just the entertainment factor. I think when I was younger, I really liked it because it was a lot more skill based.
Okay.
I grew up in traditional arcade machines, the Pac-Mans, the Donkey Kongs, and
Yeah,
that kind of
pinball.
stuff. Yeah, or even pinballs and things like that. It was way more skill-based kind of thing. These days, it's you're kind of walking along and trying to collect stuff and grow things. It's a much slower process to kind of advance where it used to be a long time ago. Back in the days like Street Fighter, you just fight till you die and that's it. It's kind of like it's all over. I put more money in.
So how did you start in video games?
God, actually, my dad when I was a little kid. My dad was in the Navy and. He used to, I used to like to go to the pub, I guess, good old Navy sailor in Australia. And, we used to go down there on the weekends and stuff like that. And he'd catch up with his Navy buddies and he'd go, all right, son, because he's looking after me for the day. My mother was working during the day.
Yeah.
And he'd give me a stack of 20-cent pieces and just say,
Go entertain
just
yourself.
go play.
Yeah.
I was like, 8, 9 years old, going, okay, what do I do? So I, to start feeding the machines. It was all tabletop. Pac-Man's Galag and all that kind of junk. And I just kept playing it often enough. Not to say my dad was an alcoholic, but it was just, he liked to drink every now and then, right? But I was there often enough, like, Dad, I finished the game. It's like, what? Because you do it repeatedly kind of thing. And that kind of got me into it. And then the next phase for me, I was about 12. We went and lived in America for about 5 years. And, my dad was posted over there with the Navy. And, it was back in Seattle, actually, in the U.S. And it was a time of 1980s, and computer programming and software was all very growing. And you had little shops called Egghead Software in the U.S. And my dad one day just brought a computer home and said, "Hey, son, this is the future."
What year was that?
Radio Shack?
Like 1984. It was
Commodore.
Before Commodore. Texas Instrument. So he literally brought this thing over. It was back in the days where you program on cassette tapes. Everything's played on a cassette tape.
That's what I had.
So, I used to get in the BMX bike, ride down to the Egghead Software store, used to grab all the magazines, come back and just try to learn how to code on a cassette tape. And, you start looking and typing in, it's zeros, ones, and, hyphens and all that kind of junk. Very basic stuff, but you do pages of this stuff. Then at the end of it, you just hit play on the cassette tape and a game magically happens.
Yeah.
Or doesn't, right? Because,
check
you've
line
got
by line.
a little syntax error somewhere like, God, it should have been a decimal point there. Why is it not? So you spend ages trying to look back, forward, like this, just trying to find that decimal point.
Wow.
These days you can find, bug finding programs and stuff like that. But back then it was literally like line by line. And it was cool. But then you hit play. And then after just playing these games, we're able to kind of program ourselves. Then you start learning, well, if I change the number 6 to a number 8, the guy's head changes to twice the size or red or something like that, right? So it's like, that's what it does, right? So that was just kind of a
trial and error.
Yeah, I was about 12, 13, I think at the time. So
just programming.
Playing in the early kind of teenage years. And then we progressed from that to IBM PC Junior, which was the old floppy disk, 5 1/4 floppies, where you load like 10 discs to play one game. Like, King's Quest.
Insert disc number 2.
Third, disc number 2. The adventure begins. You're off you're going again, and so the next flop, you're so excited to put the next one in there, and then when you get to disc 11, the game's almost finished. So you're getting towards the end of it. So I spent a lot of time just playing on the PC Junior there, and that was a good machine.
What was the most famous? This is end of the 80s. What was the most 80s. Famous? What was the most famous game? Was there was Super Mario already, or?
I wasn't into playing Nintendos at that point. I was still playing PC-based games, so I loved King's Quest. That was one of my favorite games. I could play that over and over and over again.
There was something about the Oregon Trail or something.
Well, Flight Simulators was the other one. Just flying forever. I was probably too young for that. It just wasn't getting enough excitement out of it. So
were there fighting games?
Yeah, fighting games, but when you got it's a stick controller.
Or it's a
joystick.
Yeah, and it wasn't a joystick. It was like a little tiny thin stick thing.
The Atari times.
Yeah, it was just before, sometime late 80s, and I started getting into Ataris and Commodores and stuff like that.
At what point did it become a job? At what point did it become I want to do this? As a job.
Well, it's funny. I went to university and I did, wanted to do some computing and stuff like that, and kind of business side of things. But then I did the Japanese language on top of it, purely because, a lot of video games came from Japan. I had a lot of, the culture of Japan and things like that as well. I was kind of excited by. And I just thought going through university, it's probably smarter to have 2 degrees than 1.
Yeah.
It's a crying babies, isn't it? It's because of his gaming comment earlier. I thought, I guess I was pretty, just thinking earlier, if I come out with 2 degrees, it doesn't matter what the other degree is, just have something else.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to stand out at university, because I realized, and I actually calculated how many people graduate out of university to get jobs. And I figured out in Australia it was like X amount of people, and how do you find a job? So how does my resume look better than other people's? So by having that point of difference was enough to get as a talking point to get you the interview. And of course I went for different kind of jobs. I went for IT jobs and like big giant paper companies and big secure companies. But it was all newspaper driven. You find the job in the newspaper, then you send a letter in your resume, and you get the phone call at home going, "You have an interview." Like, "Oh, really? Yeah, that's cool." "Mom, get off the phone." Back in those days.
I'm expecting a call.
So I couldn't per se say that I was trying to chase video games, because there wasn't any video game jobs advertised at the time.
That wasn't your goal.
It was just kind of my hobby, almost on the side kind of thing, and it just popped up, and I saw Nintendo. I went, "Oh, that's cool." And, and I applied for it thinking, yeah, I'd never get this job. It's too good to be true. And I went for all the job interviews, and it came down to two companies. One was this giant paper company, and they were offering me like a really good starting salary, good job promotions. Like, you're going to go somewhere, son. You're going to run this company one day, kind of thing. Like, wow, really? Built you up for the interview. Then the other one was like Nintendo, and it only had 7 people. They was expanding from overseas. They had only starting the new company in Australia to help distribute products there and stuff like that. And it's like a giant warehouse with a bunch of people, right? And it's like, wow. And there's salary was less. It was a little bit different like that. But I thought, wow, this could be cool. I liked the guy that I interviewed with. He was really cool, funny guy. And I thought, I'm just going to give this a shot. This could be, I'll see where it goes. And it had nothing to do with my Japanese, by the way.
No.
That was just enough to get to talk. And ended up that, we got along really well with the guy that interviewed me. But, long story short, I ended up taking the job and the thing exploded. Like, you're talking early 90s. Nintendo, at that time, Sega was number 1 around the world. Nintendo was down here. Then they had some, 32-bit technology games, Donkey Kong Country. Going from 16-bit, then you had, Game Boy Color and Game Boy cases and all this kind of junk coming out. And it just went skyrocketing. So I just happened to join at the right place at the right time. And of course, being there at Nintendo, I went from like 8 people with myself to eventually 50, 100 type people. It just exploded.
Wow.
And then during that time, because I was one of the early guys, I got a chance to speak some of my Japanese, although I was lousy at it.
Were there any Japanese at the office there?
There was one who was they had 2 managing directors. There was an Australian one and a Japanese one, and this guy is Susumu Tanaka. I still remember. I believe he still works for Nintendo today. He's been there for 40 years or something, and he was sent down there to kind of open the operation and do this kind of stuff. And he'd invite me up to his office and just have a chat, and I would try my broken Japanese and just fail dismally at it, right? And then he would try his broken English and probably did better than my Japanese, but we just kind of had this little connection, and it was good because I was writing like IT systems at the time that was helping look at sell-through data, so we could optimize how many units we would buy from Japan and which product we should buy and how they're selling in certain retailers.
So really a sales
and all this kind
system.
of stuff. It was basically like what they call like a sell-through system. So it looks at inventories, looks at purchasing from Japan versus purchasing from individual stuff. But it was all very raw data. I had to manually basically take all the sales data and stock and hand data from retailers by store, enter it into a giant like database, like an Access database system, and then just kind of extract reporting out of it that would give me different ways to view it. Very archaic when I look back on it now, but back then there was nothing. So I used to go into these management meetings, young guy, early 20s, have my little computer at the side kind of thing, and I'd be brought into these meetings to kind of like the Japanese guy, like, okay, tell them, hey, tell them what you've learned, tell them what you've shown. And for the first time ever, we could see that we were either over-purchasing of certain products or under-purchasing of certain products and things like that. So we were not optimizing how we were looking at our stock inventories and purchasing stuff like that. So then I was able to go there and go, I think we should do this, and I think we should do that. And of course, all the salespeople were like, no, I don't believe you. No, that store's not doing that. It's all crap. It was all, everyone was against you.
Numbers don't lie.
Well, I was just like, yeah, kind of numbers, and I put my graphs up, and it was, all kind of monthly type basis. These days it's all daily, but it was all monthly. But you'd watch these arguments break out over the table, right? And then at the very end of it, then the Japanese guy would step in, and he was a very smart guy, right? And he'd say a bunch of words, and everyone goes, okay, let me move on.
We do what you say.
It's like, it's basically like, that's accurate. We need to fix that. And then we started doing that, and it just got, the systems got better, our purchasing got better, and then that was it was good.
At what point you started being more involved in games? Yeah,
just by the making of games.
Just by luck, we sat around with some of the marketing guys, and we're just going, wouldn't it be cool if we made our own game? Kind of thing. It's like,
just import them. You mean?
No, because back then,
like the Australian team.
Yeah, because back then all the games were made in Japan. Everything for worldwide was made in Japan, which was cool. We had like Killer Instinct and Donkey Kong and some really cool games, Yoshi's Island and stuff like that. And then I was like, just local culture, local game. This might be kind of cool. We think this could sell. So we put a plan together. We found a local studio, a little software company there in Melbourne, and there wasn't many back in the day. But we had a chat to these guys. We put our whole plan together. We presented internally, and they're like, okay, all right. And the Japanese guy went, okay, I'll give this a shot. And presented back to the headquarters. And the headquarters, I think we put in at the time, will sell like 50,000 cartridges.
What kind of game?
Right? Well, it was a cricket game, actually. It was a cricket game. So
really local culture.
So, can you imagine pitching a cricket game to Japanese headquarters? They'd be like, what the fuck is this?
I was thinking either cricket.
I thought this was from India or something else kind of things. Like,
but you guys do a lot of cricket.
But we did. So, we do a lot of cricket. And, we pitched it saying, like, we'll do 50,000 cartridges, we'll sell. And they came back. And, of course, they said, if you can double your numbers, we'll let you do this thing. And we're like, being Australians, you think they get double your numbers anywhere today. We already put a pretty aggressive number, but to double your numbers was almost insane. Of course, being Aussies, we went, fuck yeah, we'll do this. Because what's the worst going to happen?
Hold my beer.
We're going to lose our job. Yeah. Hold my beer, I'm going to lose my job, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of went there a little bit crazy, right? And we just did it. Worked with a great studio there, and we ended up putting the cricket game together, and it was a massive. I think we sold like 120,000, right? We beat it, right? So. But that kind of opened the door for letting studios outside of Japan to start making games.
So you guys were the first in the world outside of Japan.
Early '90s, right? Yeah. So we kind of cracked the egg on that one, so to speak.
So this cricket game still exists, like in different
versions,
or I would love to find the original cartridge.
Cricket 2020.
Where would you put it? The cartridge.
God, I'd love to find that cartridge. Like I've got some of the old advertising, because we actually did some kind of naughty advertising, where at nighttime, like the TV, in Australia, streakers, right, in cricket.
Yeah.
The guys that come running out of the girls, like they're streaking with their clothes up. It's like a religion for us in Australia, right? So we had these commercials that after 9 p.m. You would see the guy or the girl go running and jumping over the stumps. Like it's real people who are really doing this in real life, that we tracked them down and paid them some money to, like, can we make you, put you up on these things? Because we're trying to advertise like it's real cricket kind of thing, right? And it was a massive success on the advertising as well. But no, we didn't do a second game after that. They went off and did other things. But, I'd left then and joined EA, actually.
EA is a big name. EA's...
Well, EA always has a soft spot in my heart, because back in those days in the 80s of Egghead Software and getting early games, like the basketball game I used to play was an EA game, like the original floppy disk game. And I remember the old logos they used to have. And for me, it was kind of when I got kind of poached by EA. They said, hey, you want to come join EA? I was like, oh, wow, so cool.
How do you, there wasn't LinkedIn or something.
No,
how do you get poached those days?
At the pub.
How do they hold my beer, I'm going there?
Well, it's a good question, because I was in Melbourne at Nintendo, and EA's headquarters at that time in the 90s for all of Asia Pacific was in Queensland, way up north. But it's a small industry in Australia, and you kind of get your name around a little bit, and I guess they'd found out through headhunters and stuff like that.
You get a phone call?
Just get a phone call, basically, right? Yeah, they track you down, get a phone call.
We'll double. Hey. What do they give you?
Just didn't need to. It was EA, man. I was like,
right, I'm coming.
I was like, I just jumped on a plane, went up there, and did an interview with them. And walked out of there going, wow, this is cool, right? It's some pretty cool stuff. It was a kind of new job they were doing, which was looking at third-party studios. So EA had its own bunch of studios that were making its own games, but to grow bigger, they just needed more games, and they didn't have enough studios. So what they would do is they'd look around studios around the world and go, you've got a cool game, or you've got a cool game, and they would try to license these games, and we would distribute out through EA. So my job basically was to kind of run around the world and find games,
cool
right?
Games. What games did you find?
That's what brought you
I was like in my early...
Asia?
What's that?
That's what brought
the
you
first
to
time?
Asia.
No, I was flying around. I was in Australia at the time, and I was flying like mostly to the US. A lot of the game developers were over there, so I was flying to the US quite regularly. And we talked to companies like Nova Logic, who did really cool like flight sim, and Delta Force type games. SimCity was one that we ended up poaching up, which is kind of cool.
So you found SimCity. How was it? How did you find a game?
But, I think back in the day they have a lot of gaming shows, and you kind of walk around. And you think, oh, that game looks cool. That game looks cool, and we saw that. And for us, we're like, we can. So we basically just walked up to them, and we had meetings with these guys, and said, look, we like your game. We went out to their studio. We liked the people that were there, and we wanted to basically just pick up the game and do it.
What makes a game marketable? I mean, when you see all these games, like, that's not. I want that one. What was it about a game that make it pop out?
Has its potential. Luckily, I don't think you ever picked a game that failed. Thankfully, that I ever kind of chose. It's
a lot of colors.
It's just like, I really like it. It's a good question. It's a really hard one to answer. You just have a knack for it. Like you have to look at it from, can we sell it? You know, where are the gamers at today? Is it not competing with something else? Does it have the right, the hooks?
Is it marketable?
Or pillar, the kind of pillars that are in there. Like there's a stable base that has to go into a game to make it work. And then it has to, what is its point of difference that kind of goes outside of that? And it could be a graphics, gameplay. And really, to be honest, we just play the shit out of it. It's one of the big things. These days you have banks of testing, game testers. Like, you find a game and I throw it to this guy, like 50 game testers just trying to rip the thing apart. But back in the old days, it was only a handful of us. We just play it. Lucky I was a gamer, so I'd spend his days, nights just playing. I think this game is cool.
So when you found SimCity, it was already in the market in the US, or it was like
they'd already had it in the US marketplace.
They already had it in the market.
So we kind of worked collectively with the guys at EA in the US. So we kind of like as a group went down there and played. Just went in there and liked it. And I was like, I think this game is cool. I think we can sell this in Australia really well. And we picked up the rights for kind of Australia and New Zealand, and it sold his pants off basically at the end of the day, which is really cool.
How did people use to buy a disc? What was it?
Yeah, it was all
back
disc.
then?
It was all floppy disk back then.
Yes.
And then I had a crazy idea out there one day. I went, do you think you could put some Australian icons in the thing? Just, throwing the idea. Because I'd had the taste of culturalization back in cricket. Like, do you mind, if we, could you put the Sydney Opera House in there and a couple other things? And they're like,
in the
sure.
background or something.
In the game, as a core part of the game.
Because SimCity is building a city, right?
It's building a city. So we asked to put some, cool features like Ayers Rock and, and icons from Australia. And we put that on our packaging and our marketing. And, of course, everyone went, that's different. That's kind of cool. So, it's... I've always had a very good interest in trying to culturalize games and try to adapt it for certain markets. And I'd done that even during my subsequent years when I joined THQ as well. Just getting something that's there, it's a great game, we love it, but how do you make it appeal to a certain marketplace? And always a little piece of culturalization helps.
At what point do you see the game industry changing? What have been some of those corners that they turn and things become different? And
gosh, a lot of turns. It's just,
technology, so it's quick.
Well,
right?
I mean, definitely technology and things like that. I mean, the gaming engines in the last 10 years have just been able to do some super cool graphics, right? And just even the skill levels of young guys who do visual effects and animation. It's just mind blowing. I'm playing right now as a gamer the new Some of Us, right? The Last of Us 2. Great game, by the way. Last of Us 2, big fan. And just, the cut sequences, the natural almost AI that goes into the game, it's almost lifelike and things that have to do that. It's just mind-blowing how the things have changed like that. I never got to do stuff like that when I was younger. I was a bit more clunky on the graphics, but...
Does society change the game or the games change the society? You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Like, what do you think is more influential to the other?
I'm a guy from game development, so I'm going to say game first, right? I'm always going to say...
game actually influences society.
You look at GTA games or driving games or basketball games or FIFA games, and it's hard because every year you have to excel and push that game further. You got to make a better soccer game, a better things, and the gaming studios around the world have been able to do that subsequently, and that keeps the players, and that does influence the players as they get just better types of games that are out there.
So the technology actually...
Game design, technology, it's a group effort. I can never pinpoint and say it's because of that one thing. I always think it's such a combined effort in game making. You got to have great game designers who've got the vision right at the right cusp of things. You got to have people who can just create amazing art and visual effects. And you got to get programmers to make it work. Like a lot of games, you look at sandbox games, it's a giant open world where players can run around and do kind of crazy stuff, right? You got to kind of fence it somehow without letting the player know there's a fence.
Yeah,
right.
Like
there's a lot of, which is
that.
A combination of like the art guy, design guy, technical engineering guy, all the guys combined together to make that kind of work. And it's really just having, I guess, like a soccer team. It's the perfect recipe, the perfect combination of that team to be able to make that happen.
What is the, how sometimes people ask, what's your favorite movie, right? What's the best game? Is there one, or is there a list?
I'm really enjoying The Last of Us, the second one. I love the first one, which was a couple of, many years ago. This one's been in a delay for a while. It just launched out last month, basically. So for me, that's still my favorite all-time game. And there's something about the characters and the script writing in that game. It's the kind of game where I can sit here and play it, and people could sit next to you and almost watch it like a movie. It has that kind of intensity and feeling in that.
I wanted to ask you a question that
it's big kudos to the guys.
It's been in the back of my head for some time. There's this advertisement that I get on my YouTube channel, whenever I watch it. It's a game called Mafia City.
Oh, okay.
Are you aware of it?
Yeah, Mafia City, yeah.
And what I see with that is all these moral choices that they have to make. and basically you win
If you
by
bad choice.
Yeah,
By bad
if you
choice,
become
yeah.
the worst person ever. What is the effect on society on this kind of thing? I mean, do you think there is?
It's again like anything. It can be a controversial subject. I think the thing is, it just depends on the person who's doing it and playing it, right? And like anything, if I give somebody a knife, most people aren't going to cut themselves, but there's always that one person out there who's just sillily going to do something stupid, right?
Yeah.
Same thing for gaming. I mean, we as game kind of people, we try to make the games, more fun, more enjoyable. Try to less influence. Of course, the shooting games that are out there. You do what you can in that area and just educate. It's a game, right? It is what it is. But you're going to get someone who just hasn't got the ability to be able to kind of comprehend that and disengage from that sometimes. And that's unfortunately what can happen.
The sun finally came out.
Yeah.
So
sun did come out, yeah.
Did China change? Had a big effect on the industry?
China took a very hard stance from the beginning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
Good job.
37
Good
degrees
day.
here
Good
today. China took a pretty serious stance pretty quickly on that stuff. I remember when I first coming up making games out here, like anything with a skeleton was not allowed. Right? You couldn't make anything with flesh or zombies or skeletons and all that kind of stuff.
Now you can?
To a degree, because it was kind of against the culture to have like skeletons walking around and the dead kind of thing. The China didn't really like that, the cultural aspects of that. So it has changed a little bit over the years, but there were things like that you just had to kind of work around.
How about the model of playing, what they are selling and this kind of thing? I think you told me before something about
free games.
Free to play games.
The free games. What with that? That was...
Yeah, I was, being out here 12 years ago was the pinnacle point where I was able to watch it because we had offices in Korea when all the games, particularly PC games I'll talk about, they flipped over to this crazy thing called free to play. And I remember the time, like every other country's going, "You're insane!" Like, you're gonna.
So
it's like opening a restaurant and going, "I want you to give all your food away for free."
Yeah.
It's just kind of like that, right?
Are we talking like Angry Birds, stuff like that?
No, way before that. Way before
right.
in the original days. This is almost like 10 years back. So the Korea was doing that, and there's a couple companies over there that really got bold, and they had subscription models every month. You pay money, kind of thing, and they thought they're going to flip it. And what they found was by flipping it to free to play and paying for microtransactions, that instead of having maybe you've got now 2 million players of dedicated games, suddenly you've got 20 million players.
Wow.
Because it's more accessible.
Sure.
Like I can play it, anyone can play it because now it's free kind of thing. So that was the model they flipped over there, and it became such a great success in Korea. The Chinese at that time were bringing those same games, were licensing them, bringing them into China in the early days because they didn't have much game development.
Right.
And of course, they then flipped from subscription for a while to, hey, let's try the same. And there's a couple brave companies here that did that. And again, the same effect. It went, boom, more users. Then it became interesting when you've got that kind of many users and not a fixed, kind of income coming in every month from players. You got to get creative. The hooks, how to get people to come back into the game and retain them. And if you can retain them long enough, how to help them, hey, buy this or buy that or buy that. So then, there's crazy ideas coming up with things that are both, costume, things that people like to change versus ability upgrades versus group clan upgrades, like all these different kind of stuff, that has been around now for a long time and is in games like League of Legends and things like that, right? But, the early days like that, we had to kind of play with all these kind of microtransaction stuff. And that was kind of fun, just trying to come up with the right recipe all the time and tuning it.
I guess it keeps changing. What is the future of gaming, you think?
That's a good question. The last couple of years, everyone's tried to have a little throw at VR and AR, and it kind of had this little blip for a while, and it just didn't quite take off. It got a little bit hardcore, and I think that will come back. My own personal view is it's going to come back later in the future, but I think they'll converge. It's going to be more like a mixed reality. You'll have VR and AR converge, but it won't just be about games. It'll be about everything in life. You walk into a shopping center, you're wearing glasses. It's going to teach you where to shop, how to go things. Go back home. It can go solid or transparent kind of thing. Like it's still a long way off to kind of make that more mainstream, but I think that's where some things will be able to go. What we're seeing now, particularly in the big video games, you've kind of got two parts. You've always got your mobile games, which is just always mixed.
Yeah.
You got some people who like the churn and burn, in China, like the guys behind us that are playing the kind of the fantasy
Clash of the Clan or something like that?
Clash of Clans getting a little bit old now, but a lot of the more modern fantasy games around. So,
right.
But then you've always got the kind of different. You've got the mobile gaming, and there's very different many types of mobile gaming. You've always got your video games, and in your video game quadrant, it's always epic. You know, like epic scenes and epic cutscenes and just, you know, high intensity graphics and volume and stuff like that. But the mobile game is an interesting space because there's still things that you can't predict that just come out and they get popular. You know, so, but definitely in China, there's a much more this kind of grinding and you know, RPG or RTS style gaming, which is still popular here. It transferred from PC gaming a long time ago, and now it's flipped into mobile gaming because phones got better, screens got better, graphics got better, kind of thing. So now it's like, I don't need my PC.
Yeah.
My mother doesn't want me to touch my PC because she thinks I'm playing games on it. So they, you know, kids can go out and, you know, play a game here and
in the bathroom and play games there.
Or like, not so much right now, but you'll get like, you know, kids having tea or coffee, and you get 5 people, you can enjoy the same game together off a mobile phone. So,
well, before getting too warm, right?
Yeah.
I know, for the equipment too. Let's just have you know, a good ending for this, and yeah, I want to go back a bit. Like, we spoke a lot about being expats in China. You were in the video game industry. You're not anymore. You're doing other things, maybe more exciting for you now, right? But being in China 12 years. What is the future for you? How long are you going to stay here in China?
I didn't think it was going to be 12 years. That's
Right.
it's like a lot of things. Like a lot of guys I know or girls that come out here, you think you'll do 2 years or 4 years.
Yes, a lot of people.
4 gets to 8, 8 gets to 12. Look,
Nobody come and say, I'll stay here for 12 years.
No, yeah. It's a funny thing because China has evolved and changed so much in the last kind of, yeah, let's say decade or so that it's, particularly the technology, it's hard to get away from that. Like when I visit back to Australia, it's like, oh my God, I can't use my phone for this, or I can't use my phone for that, or I can't just like order something and it arrives straight away, and I can't, like, you know, Taobao here, I can find anything and it's delivered the next day, and so many
good things,
so many cool things like that.
Yeah.
So it would take some adjustment. So I think so. I can't answer you to how long I'll stay, but you know, right now, I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
I think the family's enjoying it. Yeah, we're still exploring new places, new beaches, you know, new things to do, and things like that.
You're not in a hurry to leave China.
Not right now. We'll see how
we're
things
comfortable.
go. Well, we can't fly at all anywhere right now. So
right. Not right now for sure.
I'm kind of stuck at the moment, but you know, there are times I do miss some of the Western stuff.
Sure. Right.
You know, I would kill for a souvlaki. And for people from Melbourne, will know this because like Melbourne has like one of the biggest Greek communities, right? There's like souvlakis everywhere. I just die for a good souvlaki.
Just learn how to make it. Just learn how to make it, man.
It's not the same unless it comes from a little caravan and the guy's out there and he's cutting it down for you.
Another 12 years, maybe they will have it, right?
That's what I miss the most.
All right, Tim. Thank you for
thanks, guys.
For hosting us in your best coffee shop of the world.
The Good Day Coffee Shop.
Good Day's Coffee Shop.
All right, guys. Well, Tim, thank you very much for all this time and all the great information that you're giving us in terms of living in China.
Great pleasure.
And, well, guys, you know how it goes. If you like the content of our channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you do that, don't forget to hit the bell button to be notified whenever there's a new video out. Follow us on our social media down here. And until we see you again, this is, of course,
China.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.